Race 28 of the 2021 FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals rolls into the place that started it all. This is Daytona International Speedway as it plays host to the regular season finale here for this series and pretty much sets up the final spot for the playoffs. This is the wild card race, in essence, where 5 drivers at the end of the evening, only one of them will emerge victorious in the final playoff position. The other 11 drivers that are already locked in, they still have to determine their seeding here today based off of playoff points they can accumulate during the course of this 100-lapper. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Alec Kolonix, and we've got a total of 35 drivers ready to take the green flag. The thing is here, though, everybody's on a different agenda.
Yeah, that's going to make a huge story for tonight. Is there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to want to try and stay at the front of the field, knowing that a win is really the only thing they're looking to accomplish tonight. And then there's other guys who only have a couple people that they're wanting to race against, so they want to try and stay out of trouble to make sure they could stay ahead of them as this race goes on.
Sean Butler, who's already locked into the playoffs, one of those drivers that is yet to find a win this season. As a matter of fact, 2 of the 3 drivers that are full-time Grand National Series drivers have won their races here at Super Speedways. Jake Poulin won back at Daytona, and Brent Pancari won at Talladega Super Speedway. Now, if you're those drivers that are trying to pick up a win here and get those playoff points, I'm noticing a lot of drivers in the field here today that are either making their first start on the year or we haven't really seen them run full time. I mean, how much diplomacy was going on with drivers saying, hey, work with me out there?
Well, typically what we're going to see, because there's so many new drivers tonight, is there's going to be a lot more mix-up of who is willing to work with who tonight. If you are a part of a team, that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to allow you to get to the front of the field and stay up front, knowing that you have people willing to work with you.
Pace car is going to make the left-hand turn to pit road. The green flag is going to fly, and we are underway here at Daytona International Speedway, the final regular season race on the year, the precursor to the playoffs, as Sean Butler immediately edges out ahead. A little bit of help there from Kyler Wynn. Now, Wynn is in the 84 car here tonight. One of the drivers that was in the hunt to get the wild card spot. Kazuma Nishinobu not in that 84 car this evening, so looks like he has kind of bowed out of playoff contention. As now that 84 left with very little help, it's going to be Chris Davis who's going to push the 32 on the top side. Inside starting to get a run now out of turn number 4. The 4 drivers that remain that still have a shot of getting that 12th and final playoff position would include Ryan Araki, Justin Malello. Those are a couple of teammates out of Speed Incorporated, as well as Ethan Corder and Evan Rice. I believe Corder is in the field right now in the 21st position. We haven't seen Evan Rice behind the wheel of his machine for about 3 or 4 weeks, but he is here tonight as well. Right now, that 98 riding back in the 29th position.
As we see Sean Butler out in front of the field tonight, he's going to be one looking for a win tonight. He just got a win yesterday in the SNSL series, finally achieving an FTF series win. And if he could pull off a double tonight here in the GNS series, he's going to be probably the greatest interview we're going to get on the night, as he's getting battled for the lead with Ryan Doucette getting a great push on the bottom.
Double zero, or that's 077, I should say. That's actually Seth Knoll that's driving that 77 here tonight. We're used to seeing Doucette in that week after week, and he is going to go to the front with help from Kyler Wynn. There's Jake Poulin, who won the season opener at Daytona, trying to double down here at this super speedway. And one thing people may notice is just how bumpy this racetrack is for these guys going down these straightaways. This is the legacy version of Daytona, so Alex, how difficult is it to line up the bumpers, which we know creates the most speed on these straightaways, when the car is bobbing up and down like that?
Well, the biggest issue you have when you're behind cars trying to bump is a lot of guys will start to weave. And at a typical super speedway, you yell at the driver, but here, sometimes you just have to yell at the track, because now these drivers are going through the corners, especially a massive bump as we come down towards 1 and 2, right in the center of the corner, throws these cars up the track like crazy, which can easily cause a wreck, as we are probably soon to see one.
Close call there as Seth Knoll tried to look like maybe tuck in line behind Sean Butler. Now goes back to the inside, outside line forming as we're going to go 3 wide. Chris Davis, I believe, is that car on the top. Nope, correction, that's the 05 of Max Brady who's running behind the 32. Chris Davis kicked up to the 3rd lane. He's starting to fade back. And I think that might be the 9 behind there with him. Garrett Conrath is, some connection problems there for Seth Knoll. He'll go down below the double yellow line, the front straightaway, and drop out of harm's way, allowing that lead pack to bypass him.
I'm amazed these drivers are so confident going 3 wide. At a typical super speedway, you would see this without any issues, but at this track where it's so bumpy and you see cars coming up the racetrack in the corners so much, it's so easy to get into that guy on the outside of you and just put him in the wall half the time. So those drivers are making some fantastic moves to be able to not only go 3 wide, but stay 3 wide throughout the lap.
Definitely are. I mean, right now, we're seeing 3 wide in this lead group. Saw them 3 wide back in that second group as well, which right now is being led by the 67 of Andrew Schwartz. That's about a 2nd and 2/10 behind the lead pack. Jonathan Oates, the points leader in the overall standings, just behind there as well. Cole Freilich, Nate Stewart there. He's actually driving the 80 car this week. We're used to seeing him in the 4 machine. Also add in Jack Painter and Rudy Valentine, a driver that's ended up winning at, I guess we could call it another super speedway, the Monza Oval.
I would actually go as far as to say the Monza Oval is probably one of the closest tracks on the GNS schedule so far this year to this one. A bumpy, big super speedway oval that's very hard to drive and line up bumpers. So I would actually count Rudy Valentine as being a driver we should watch out for tonight as this race goes on.
Great point. As we saw there, Max Brady tried to put the move on Sean Butler for the race lead. He got forced down below the double yellow line, which allowed him to come back up, continue to hold his position, and continue to try and get this top position away from Sean Butler. He's got Jake Poulin offering the drafting help to him. 34 of Travis Brown now is the wingman for the 32. A couple of Mustangs working together in the second group. One thing I'm also noticing here, Alex, and I don't know if it's just the bumpy surface here of Daytona, but I'm seeing a lot of times off of turn 2, those drivers on the inside line, it's almost as if those left sides go down below that yellow line on the apron, and they're getting a little squirrely coming out of the back straightaway.
Well, one of the unique things about this racetrack is because of the position of the yellow line, it's not exactly where the apron is. There are some little banked parts right below the apron. So you'll see a lot of guys, their cars will try and turn down the banking and not really hit it until suddenly they're up against the yellow line. They suddenly hit some random apron, which can really throw these guys for a loop who are stuck on this bottom.
Butler doing a great job of keeping everybody in his rearview mirror. He's allowed some drivers alongside, but nobody's been able to wrestle the lead away from him. Now up the middle, I believe that is the 018 of Umar Diallo, a former winner from this season. Look at the top side. Travis Brown with a big shove, courtesy, I believe that's of Caden Rush. The 121, they're making up some pretty good ground 3 wide. Ooh, Poulin gets a little loose there, and that's going to check everybody up, break them up just a little bit. Now it's going to be Butler by about a splitter, going to edge Travis Brown at the line, but that 34 still with momentum. And look how the bumpers were locked up there through the tri-oval. Caden Rush trying to push Brown out in front, and there's only 2 cars on that top side.
Yeah, we were talking just before about how difficult it was to lock bumpers. As Sean Butler, ooh, that's a tight block right ahead of Travis Brown. We're talking about how tough it is to lock the bumpers, but once you do, these cars are surprisingly stable.
Oh, we got a
spin in the back!
That's TJ Burke in the 70 going around. I couldn't tell who he went off the nose of. The caution is indeed going to wave for the first time here today at Daytona, 9 laps in. Kit Kat Toyota Supra, a lot of damage on the rear end of that car, especially around the left rear quarter panel. As we'll go back and take a look and see what happened to him. He was running up in that lead pack at the time, and just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, it's unfortunate things that happen at this racetrack. I knew a wreck was going to happen soon here because of just how difficult it is to keep the car stable over the bumps. And unfortunately for TJ Bursk, this is going to end up causing him to fall the back, though. I don't think he has as much damage as he probably could have had.
See where the initial contact was as, oh, looks like that was possibly the 05 of Max Brady that got a little bit on the brakes there, as I think he was thinking maybe he was going to go around. And then when the 70th burst checked up, just nowhere for Poulin to be able to go. And boy, we're very fortunate that that was just a single car incident. Could have been a lot more drivers involved in that one, especially with that second group further back if that 70 had traveled back up onto the racing surface.
He did a very good job there at keeping it down below the racetrack and not really getting anybody else involved. Though now we're going to have two drivers in Jake Poulin and TJ Bursk with damage, so their races are pretty much going to be over as these cars are so aero sensitive to damage nowadays.
We saw how crazy that initial start of the race was. Now with this caution coming out, maybe the pre-race jitters able to settle a little bit, the adrenaline rush able to lower just a tad, and these drivers can get themselves settled in and maybe kind of ride for a moment to be able to preserve their race cars. Because we have to remember too, when you wreck at a super speedway, you're more than likely going to take a pretty significant hit that's going to hurt you aerodynamically. And when there's no faster pair to fall back on, especially as we said, every single driver in the field here tonight has some agenda, and pretty much all the agendas equal one thing, that's finding victory lane. You want to make sure that thing's still in one piece. With it being a 100-lap race, you got to pace yourself here.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we see this very early in the race, this wreck occur, so I think this is going to be a bit of a reminder to these drivers to kind of relax and just make sure they don't get into any wrecks, because there's a long way to go and a lot of wrecks could happen if we keep going at this pace.
I think I said at the top of the program that 35 drivers are coming to take the green flag. That was only because my telemetry registered 35 drivers that had taken time. There actually were 42 drivers that took the green flag, but it looks like at this point in time, 2 of them will not be coming around to receive the green flag for this upcoming restart. Tyler O'Neill, when he came down pit road, he made the left-hand turn to the garage area for some reason, and it looks like Liam Sheen did not even take the green flag to start this race, and so they will be finishing 41st and 42nd as a result here. All the remaining drivers, 40 in total, will be on the lead lap when we get ready to go back green flag racing. It was Jake Poulin who decided to stay out an extra lap, and Sean Butler in the 32's coming back down pit lane.
That is quite surprising. I'm curious as to why he's coming down pit road, because he's towards the front of the field. He was running good at the front, and I didn't seem to see any significant damage on his car. So to have him come down pit road is really going to hurt his chances at this race, unless if his plan is just to kind of stay in the back and stay out of everything.
See if maybe this is a top off the fuel tank strategy on the part of the 32, but it's definitely going to put him way back in traffic, that is for sure. Like right now, he would be restarting back somewhere in the vicinity of 26th or 27th, depending on where he comes off of pit road. So we'll keep tabs on that. Looks like Tyler O'Neill's issue was actually just a connection problem. He has since returned back in, and he is still on the lead lap. So it will be 41 drivers that will take the green flag for the upcoming restart. Travis Brown, the race leader, chooses the inside line. Seth Knoll will line up to his outside. Tyler Wynn and Lucas Palesso, they're going to be in row 2. Row 3 will find Jonathan Oates and Max Brady. Row 4, Jack Painter, Caden Rush, Rudy Valentine, and Andrew Schwartz are going to complete the top 10. And you got Brandon Hawken, Garrett Conrath, Casey Nemitz, Parker White, and Ryan Blackford. They are going to complete the top 15. Right now, for the drivers that are battling for the wild card spot, the driver that currently holds that would be, I believe, Ryan Naraki, who is running at the time back in the 25th position, but Ethan Corder, Justin Malello, Evan Rice, they're all right there in the same vicinity as well. So this thing is not over by a long shot. It's the highest finisher of those four that gets that 12th and final spot as the green flag waves once again here at Daytona.
Well, Travis Brown and Seth Noel get a fantastic start, both side by side. They're really not getting the help at the moment, but this is going to determine who gets the lead here, as Travis Brown is about to get some help from Kyler Wynn, and it looks like he's going to get bumper to bumper and push clear himself of Seth Noel. Great move between the two of them to get themselves out to the lead.
45 of Lucas Palesso is going to move down to the inside line. Third there, that black and yellow machine. He's already locked into the playoffs, but he's also, much like the other 10 that are locked in, trying to rack up as many playoff points as possible. You get the playoff points with podium finishes. The winner gets 5 playoff points, second place gets 2 playoff points, and third place gets 1 playoff point. So still a lot to race for these 11 drivers, as another driver that's very much in the hunt there in the playoffs, that's 67 of Andrew Schwartz. Schwartz ended up starting this race back from the 22nd position. It's kind of been an MO that we've seen with Schwartz all season long. Qualifies around mid to rear of the field, and next thing you know, he's up there inside the top 10 in the closing stages.
Doing a fantastic job here to try and keep himself towards the front, keep himself in contention for this win, and make sure his name is at least known at the front of the field, because something that's discussed a lot in the real life racing is making sure people know that you're quick, and they'll be more willing to work with you if they know that. So he's trying to stay up there and secure that spot in everybody's mind.
Now, there's also another thing that's going on here today, as this is the 5th and final leg of the Motorsports Drop Challenge. We've had a number of races in the past couple of weeks that have had Motorsports Drop as a sponsor. Tonight is no exception, with this being the Motorsports Drop 250. Now, there were 5 races: North Wilkesboro, Circuit of the Americas, Bathurst, Darlington, and here at Daytona, where the driver that accumulates the most points in those 5 races would end up winning the challenge. Right now, it is Jonathan Oates who is leading that by 12 points over Andrew Schwartz, 39 points over Dalton Cowden, and 43 points over Tristan Hagenstein. Mathematically, those are the only 4 drivers in the hunt, and it all comes to a close here at Daytona.
Yeah, that championship is a unique one because Motorsports Drop has just been so generous in sponsoring so many races this year. They really have put FTF on their back and really made sure that their name is known. We love them here in this series, and to have their own little separate championship is just a little bonus.
Right now, the top 2 in that battle. Andrew Schwartz running in 11th. Jonathan Oates just a little ways back in the 13th, now 14th position. However, Schwartz is at the tail end of the lead group. Oates is back here at the head of the second pack, which has a lot more drivers than the first pack. First pack has about 10, 11 drivers in it. The second pack's got about 20 to 25 drivers in it, and a couple of them going 3 wide. There's TJ Bursk. You can see that damage on the left rear quarter panel of that Toyota Supra. It has not affected him. He's up here still competitive, now in the 16th spot.
Yeah, I mentioned that when he got spun that he didn't get a typically huge amount of damage, and while we do see a big hit on the left rear quarter of his car, typically rear end damage doesn't seem to affect these cars nearly as much as any front end damage, so I'm not fully surprised to see him still running inside the pack as well as he is.
We're on board here with Sean Butler, who we saw make that second trip to pit road under our only caution. He's been able to work his way back up into the top 15, right now slotted in the 14th position, following in the tire tracks of TJ Bursk, who is also in the tire tracks of the 22 of Jack Painter. So they are trying to work their way up to the front here. As speaking of, oh, we got a big wreck! Speaking of the front, that is Omar Diallo and Caden Rush, and oh no, the track is blocked up. Several drivers come flying in. Painter is involved. Schwartz is in it, Wynn is in it, TJ Bursk is in it. Everyone trying to get on the brakes, trying to find a whole multi-car incident here less than 20 laps in.
Man, you were just talking about all those drivers who were staying out of trouble and making sure their position is known. You were talking about Andrew Schwartz. He's involved in this wreck. Omar was racing for the lead and got in this wreck. All these guys were racing right at the front of the field, and they're all wrecked now.
We were talking about TJ Bursk and that damage on the left rear, not really affecting him. I saw a number of drivers there leaving the scene that they are going to be dealing with lack of aerodynamics and straightaway speed when all is said and done here. Let's go back and see what happened, because we caught the tail end of it there when 121 and the 018 got together. And some very hard hits taken there with drivers trying to get on the brakes to avoid, and several of them unable to do so. Actually, it looks like Omar Diallo, before we go to the replay, just going to double check on him because he's flying up through the field. I'm wondering if he might be looking for somebody. No, I guess his day is done. I think he's just flying down pit road to call it a day. Yeah, it hits the outside wall. So yeah, looks like Omar Diallo, he is done for this one. Let's go back and see what happened to actually start this wreck. And this would have been, I think, around the second position at the time. So literally at the front of the field. Oh, we were 4 wide for a brief moment there, it looks like. 95 is in the mix there. Of Parker White, I believe that is. And, oh wow, just a lot of drivers bouncing off of each other. Lucas Palesso is involved. I think Jonathan Oates may have gotten a piece in the 73. Everybody trying to crawl through. Some getting damaged, some not getting damage. Looks like this has taken not only Omar Diallo out of the race, Jack Painter has gone to the garage area as well. There's Oates on the right side of your screen. A lot of front end damage there on a driver that was looking to rack up some more playoff points. That's a lot of big names right there, as you said, Alex, involved in this one. And now that kind of opens up the door for maybe some of those underdog drivers to be able to rake in some much-needed playoff points.
Yeah, we were also talking about Sean Butler, who had pit on the previous stop and had put himself towards the back of the pack. I believe he missed this wreck, so doing that extra pit stop actually helped him out significantly because of this incident.
You would be correct. There you see him in the 4th position. Eric Conrath just up ahead of him as well. Rudy Valentine in the 818. I believe that at least 3 of the top 5 are drivers that were back in the second pack, as got some drivers ducking onto pit road. Valentine, Butler, Noel, Freilich, they're all coming onto pit lane. So Max Brady and Garrett Conrath look like they will end up being the front when we go back green. Jonathan Oates, extended stay on pit road, getting damage repaired. Same for Burst, same for Schwartz. Matthew Spalding just completed his service. He's down and away, but 1 lap down to the race leaders. You just saw Caden Rush barely win the battle off pit road against the race leader, Max Brady, so he will remain on the lead lap. And Travis Brown also had a rather lengthy stop on pit road. I'm actually noticing a lot of drivers just above them too that spent over a minute on pit road, which is what I'm assuming for for crash damage. Nate Stewart, Chris Davis, Ethan Courter, Lane Twiddell, Adam Sweet, Jack Painter we know was in it, Lucas Palesso, Kyler Wynn. I mean, right now, if I'm tallying it up, I'm seeing about maybe anywhere from 15 to 19 cars that got damage in that in some way, shape, or form.
That definitely changes the outcome of this race, because there were a lot of guys that were just trying to either race each other or only were trying to race for the win. But now that so many people are damaged, whoever's left has a huge advantage over everybody else who just got in that incident. I mean, we had the big one early in this race, and there's still so much left in this race. Who knows what can happen from this point on?
I know that this race still has a long ways to go. We're going to have 80 laps left when the pace car hits pit road this time. But I mentioned 2 drivers in Oates and Schwartz who are now 1 lap down apiece back in 38th and 39th. Look who's up in 3rd place, Tristan Hagenstein. He was the final driver still in the hunt for the Motorsports Drop Challenge. He's got a shot now with those top 2 back there with crash damage.
Yeah, I mean, this is just pretty much a win for this handed to him. As long as he stays out of trouble tonight, I believe he should win this without any issues. But as we're looking back towards the front of the field again, we got Garrett Conrath and Max Brady side by side pushing. There's a great race for the front of the field. Nobody's cleared each other yet, but Jordan Worth is getting a fantastic push to Parker White, and he's just going to let him go. Jordan Worth has been left on his own, but Tristan Hagenstein is going to try and come with him and help him out now.
Parker White, you can see, still has that damage on the front end of his race car. He was involved in that big 1 through 3 and 4. Ooh, the car diving for pit road. Is that Max Brady in the 05? It is. And he's flying down pit road. I don't know if this might have been a restart violation or what this is for the race leader, or former race leader now, as Jordan Worth around the top side with some help from Tristan Hagenstein. He's going to take the lead from Parker White. And look at that orange car there, third on the inside line. That's Evan Rice, who's trying to snipe the final playoff spot. Right now, he is head and shoulders position-wise ahead of the rest of his competition. You got to go all the way back to Ryan O'Rourke in 17th place before you find the next driver trying to win that wild card position.
Once again, this is another driver where it's just pretty much been handed to him as, oh, he actually has had some connection issues. He just blinked out for a second there across the line. That's something we may have to watch out for, because if he blinks at the wrong time, like he was going across the line, I've seen times where they just lose a lap. So while he may be in position now, he needs to watch out for that as this race goes on.
Definitely has to keep an eye on that. Is Sean Butler with help from Tyler O'Neill on the top side. They're going to try and move to the front. The driver back there stepping out of line. I think that might be the 4 of Cole Freilich. Maybe trying to drop back to a safer point here in the field. I saw a couple of other drivers actually at the initial lap there of that restart that also dropped back, including our Talladega winner, Brent Pancari. He's now back to 20th place, but hey, he's already won a super speedway, so I'm certain that he had a strategy coming into this one.
Yeah, well, there's a few strategies tonight. We've seen guys try and run in the front and stay in front of all the wrecks, and then there's the strategy of staying in the back and stay out of the wrecks. Now, Brent Pancari may be trying to do the stay in the back and stay out of wrecks. The guys who were trying to do the front and stay out of the wrecks and be ahead of them, well, they were the wreck. So, two strategies, one of them a little bit more risky than the other, I would say.
See Matt Spalding on the inside there, that NOS number 18. Now we're used to seeing Matthew Zwack behind the wheel of that machine. Zwack locked in the playoffs, and so taking the opportunity to give Spalding some seat time in that Toyota Supra. Right now, giving it a good run up here towards the front, albeit though a lap down. Spalding is hoping for a caution here, as he would be the lucky dog at this point in time, as they're going to make their way around the 73 of Jonathan Oates. We are a quarter of the way through the Motorsports Drop 250 here at Daytona. Tyler O'Neill now to the front in that 031. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, but you're not going to miss a bit of the action here from Daytona, as we're going to go FRN side by side.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you can only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get.
Back here at Daytona for the Motorsports Drop 250, the 28th and final regular season race for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. It has been side by side, neither line giving an inch, with Tyler O'Neill and Gareth Conrath trying to see who's going to lead their line to the front. Had some lap traffic in the way moments ago. They've been cleared easily, but we've got a total of 24 cars up in this lead group still. We haven't even reached halfway. We might possibly, Alex, be starting to think about maybe our first round of green flag pit stops if these guys can keep the fenders on them.
Well, that so far has been a problem tonight. I'm unsure about your prediction of green flag pit stops. I think you're being a little bit hopeful with that as we see some aggressive shoving on the inside line. That's just something we don't typically see at a super speedway this difficult, but we can never know what will truly happen until it happens, so I'll be hoping for it as well.
This long green flag run we've been on so far, about 12-13 laps in length. I've seen a couple of drivers fall off the lead lap as a result, including the 22 of Jack Painter, the 89 of Brandon Hawken. You just saw there on board with Parker White, another driver up ahead. I believe that's the 05 of Max Brady, who we saw dive onto pit road for what I can only assume was an unscheduled pit stop. He's next on the hit list. He'll move down to the inside, and he's going to follow a lap down to the race leader, which is going to be Garrett Conrath. Oh no! There goes Tyler O'Neill around. He collects up the 92 of Jordan Worth. Several drivers spinning on the back straightaway, include also the 13 of Ethan Corder, our second big wreck of the day.
Man, I was just talking about me doubting the fact that they'll make it to green flag pit stops, and what happens only a lap later is they end up wrecking. It's been the story tonight. It's just been too risky to try and rely on it going green tonight. I think the guys who are going to end up being the winners of this race are going to be the guys who just stay out of it and try and stay out of the racing that we've seen at the front of the field.
You have to wonder if maybe them trying to get around Max Brady on that inside line played a big factor into the contact that was made off of turn 2. Watch again the bright yellow and blue 031 of Tyler O'Neill. Let's see if Butler maybe gets into the back of him or if he just gets loose. Oh no, 92 of Jordan Worth pushed up the track into him. hard hit into the outside wall. He clips the right rear quarter panel of Matt Spalding. You see further back there the 13 of Ethan Corder involved, and we'll jump back again to see about all those drivers that kind of got swept up by Worth down to the inside wall.
This is one of these things that just happens at these super speedway races, and I was talking earlier in the race about they were doing a really good job at staying 3 wide, but when they're trying to blow by a lap car like this and they're kind of shifting through all their lanes, something like this can happen where these guys just don't give each other enough space around that lap car and we end up seeing a wreck.
Max Brady, the car they were trying to get around, just barely gets through. That was, I believe, the 54 that you saw there, Brian Blackford, who was able to avoid, and another guy that did a great job of getting on the brakes, doing the driving duties for the 4 machine here today, Cole Freilich. Let's take a look at what he saw there off of turn number 2 as we ride on board with his machine. I mean, he actually was down on the infield area, that runoff, and did a very nice job of making sure that he didn't get his race car torn up. Couple of misses there for his Toyota Supra. I believe just up ahead of him there is the 12 of Gary Waterworth, another of our drivers locked into the playoffs. So nice avoidance by a number of drivers right there, as we had about half the field come down pit road. We'll have to see what this does as far as who would get the lucky dog, Alex, because at the time that that wreck took place, Max Brady had just been lapped, but being caught up in the incident, I would assume he would not be the free pass car. Looks like it might be the 67 of Andrew Schwartz who'll get back on the lead lap here.
It's very fortunate for Andrew Schwartz as well, as we were talking about him wanting to try and finish this race well and try and get some extra playoff points going into the playoffs, but because of that previous wreck before this one, he ended up going a lap down. Now he's at least going to have the chance to try and race around the field if he gets enough damage fixed.
Not quite halfway through this race, lap 35 about to go onto the board as we're working our 3rd caution of the day. We have the garage area starting to pile up with torn up race cars. Max Brady just brought his car to the garage area. He's going to join Tyler O'Neill, Ethan Corder, Tyler Wynn, Caden Rush, Umar Diallo, TJ Bursk, and Liam Sheen. That Lane Tidwell still out there. He, in about 4 laps time, could work his way up from 38th to 34th, as there's several drivers ahead of him in the running order that are back in the garage area. And when we get ready to go back green, 29 will be on the lead lap of those 34 that are still running. With Corder out of the race, that now narrows it down between, I now believe, just 2 drivers for that final spot in the playoffs. Ryan Araki in the 02, Evan Rice in the 98. Right now, Evan Rice currently in the 19th position. He was just on pit road. Naraki just 1 position behind him in 20th place. So we know that when you end up putting playoff implications together at a super speedway and every position in every point matters, it could be literally just 1 position deciding it all when the checker flag waves.
Yeah, it truly can be. I mean, especially the unpredictability at a super speedway. The driver who could be a whole 10 to 15 positions behind coming onto that last lap can suddenly end up winning the race for all we know. So we'll have to be watching this the whole night to see if any of these 2 drivers end up getting in a wreck that can assuredly decide that one of them is going to be better off than the other.
Green flag set to come back out here. Going to give us a total of 65 laps left here at Daytona International Speedway, as Sean Butler back up through the gears. Was hoping Garrett Conrath was going to be able to get his gonna jump, but there's some daylight between the 2. Now Butler's actually going to pull up in front of Parker White. You almost wonder if those 2 might have been planning the Joey Logano coined phrase okie dokie to work together. Nope, guess not. Butler back down to the bottom to pick up the 9. Seems only appropriate here at Daytona that you've got Spencer Ray running that Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwback, the Born on This Day red and white scheme on his Toyota.
Yeah, that's a fantastic looking scheme. I'm a huge fan of that. It's very clean, very simple, very reminiscent of that early old look of NASCAR that sometimes is a little lost nowadays. I love to see schemes like that out on the racetrack as they go 3 wide for the lead.
That's Conrath in the middle, Butler on the top, and Ray on the bottom, but the 19 has no drafting help. Spencer Ray going to start drifting back. Conrath, he has Seth Knoll to help him, but Butler with Parker White, he's going to forge back out ahead. Nope, man, not just so fast. Here comes Conrath on the inside. Now he's looking for some drafting help on the inside off of 2.
That's got to be one of the greatest things I love about this racetrack, because even sometimes if you don't have the drafting help, but you still have a little bit of momentum, that bumpy surface makes it harder for guys that are drafting in line to just blow by you. And we saw that with Garrett Conrad just pulling up side by side with Sean Butler with nobody right behind him in that instance.
How about the guy up there fourth in the outside line? The 14 of Casey Nemitz has found his way up into the top 10. Running in the tire tracks of Seth Knoll. Behind him, Travis Brown, who was involved in the big one we had over in the middle of 3 and 4. He's now been able to work his way back up to the front. And Rich Jamison in the 86, just about to knock on the door of the top 10. He's riding in the tire tracks of that 34, about the 6th car on that outside line, as they're going to fan out 3 wide, about middle portion of this top 10 down the back straightaway.
These guys just won't calm down. They won't stop racing. They've seen 3 big wrecks happen throughout this race, and yet they just continue to keep racing as hard as they can. I'm just so curious as to what the mindset is for all these guys.
Now, I know for a lot of these 11 drivers locked into the playoffs, they're just trying to rack up those playoff points. Everybody else, with the exception of Evan Rice and Ryan Araki, they're just trying to get a W here this season. I'm almost wondering, with the exception of Rice and Araki, do you think these guys are just coming out into this race with a nothing to lose attitude, everything to gain, and maybe that's why we're seeing them so aggressive?
Well, I think that has to be the only other reason. I mean, you were talking at the beginning of the show that there's so many drivers making their first start here in the series, and they have absolutely nothing to lose. The only thing they have to show is that they're a good driver to put their name on the map. And what a better way to do that than race hard at the front of the field. And for the guys that are just secure into the playoffs already, well, all they want to do is make sure they're at the front the whole time to show that they're a threat in the playoffs.
One thing I have noticed is with the wrecks we've had so far here in this one, 2 drivers whose names have not been mentioned as involved are the 2 drivers who have taken checkered flags this season at super speedways, that being Jake Poulin and Brent Pancari. Right now, Poulin running back in the 22nd position. Pancari currently has himself slotted in, I believe, the
26th position.
Yes, and right now both on the lead lap, so I think these guys already had the strategy coming in. They've already been there before. They are kind of adhering back to their playbook. We're mentioning them back right now outside the top 20. I guarantee you we're going to be talking about them at the front when this thing's over.
That would typically be what you expect, but from what we've seen tonight, I'm not sure, because I don't think anybody is somebody to watch for tonight. I tried to throw out a few names earlier in the race, but a lot of them are already wrecked out. And who knows who could come out with a win tonight. I mean, we've got somebody who's making one of their first starts, like Brian Blackford, just sitting there in the middle of the pack, really hasn't gotten in any incidents, and he's still up in the field. So who knows who could win.
Still side by side for that top position. This is looking eerily similar to what we saw when we took that commercial break, as somebody's smoking there on the apron. Coming down pit road, I believe that's Brandon Hawken in the 89, who's been running off the pace the last few laps, last couple of stints, and looks like the engine finally giving up the ghost. That's a tough break there for a former winner this season at a road course here in the Grand National Series.
There's currently one driver I would like to point out at the moment. I mentioned him a little bit earlier as being one driver to watch out for because of where he got his win is Rudy Valentine in the 15th position. He won at the Monza Speedway oval, the bumpy oval that's really skinny and tight. The track that I said is very similar to this one. He's currently running right in the middle of these two packs in kind of what I would call the safe zone, as there's just huge gaps in front and behind him. And he's making sure that he's still up there while not being directly in the middle of the fight, even with the little bit of damage that he has. I would definitely watch him as this race continues.
Right on board with him. You saw that car dart to the inside and head for pit road. That was Parker White in the 195. Not certain if that's connection problems or what, but he has actually faded off of my telemetry as if he is out of the session. We'll follow up on that here as Parker was up there inside of the top 5. Whoa! Things getting a little swirly there, though. So that was Chris Davis getting on the apron. We're 3 wide with Cole Freilich on the bottom, Conrath in the middle, and that was Nemitz on the top side. Fortunately, we settle it back out to double wide. Spencer Ray wants the race lead here in the tri-oval.
These drivers are relentless. They will not stop. They're taking it 3 wide for second. They just don't stop racing. They never decide that we're comfortable. They always want to be ahead of the other person. This is absolutely crazy racing we are seeing tonight, and I am loving it.
Well, obviously, we're seeing that you can generate a run. I'm almost wondering if that's what's kind of forcing these drivers' hands to make these aggressive-like moves, because if you don't take that run somewhere, you're probably going to get run over yourself.
And that's the only other option. That's a problem we typically see with the Cup cars in real
Spencer
life.
Ray, hang on to it.
Spencer Ray's pulling a Kyle Busch at Daytona. Oh my gosh, how did he keep that car under control? He kept sticking it on the apron and somehow didn't wreck.
Credit to everybody else as well, giving him the room. Oh, someone spun up there. Seth Knoll around in the 077. Others are spinning down there as well. That's Chris Davis and Casey Nemitz. Caution's out. 4th time today, nearing the halfway point.
There's another one of our front runners, Seth Noel, getting into this wreck. We were talking about Chris Davis. He was at the front of the field earlier. Casey Nemitz was in the middle of that pack. These guys at the front, they're racing so hard, and yet they keep wrecking. When are these numbers going to thin that this racing starts to calm down?
Go back, see what happened here. Let's start with the 077 of Seth Noel. He was the first one that we saw out of shape, and this was actually a battle for the race lead at the time. That's Conrath pushing him. Oh, Butler tried to clear, and he wasn't. Made some contact there. I think maybe Seth Knoll was trying to check up to let him in, realizing that wasn't going to work. May have gotten a little help from behind by the 9.
It's just unfortunate circumstances for Seth Noel there. He was just trying to race for the lead. It felt like that was kind of his position, but Sean Butler knew he needed to get up in front of him before they got by him, because if he didn't, there would have been a massive run towards them. And they also, after that, Garrett Conrad checked up into the field, which is how Casey Nemitz and Chris Davis also got into this incident, as they got the accordion effect and ended up wrecking because of it.
Pretty extensive damage to the front end of that 200 of Chris Davis. That's going to hurt him for the remainder of this race for sure. And you talked about it earlier about the aggressive blocking we saw there out of Sean Butler. That one right there leading to the contact that led to this 4th caution of the day. But we know that when we get into the second half of this race, which we were just on the horizon of, and we begin to tick these laps away, that blocking is going to become more frequent and more aggressive no matter who's in the race lead.
Well, these drivers also have to watch out with this blocking as well, as Sean Butler had actually received an end-of-the-line penalty from our admins tonight. Jake Poulin has brought down the hammer and put him to the back of the field for that incident.
Everybody going to hit pit road here, it looks like, for our drivers on the lead lap. This caution should put the 22 of Jack Painter back on the lead lap, as he was the first and only car 1 lap down in the 29th position. And we'll watch this battle off of pit road, see who's going to be able to win it. Ooh, looked like it might have been the 80 of Nate Stewart. No, correction, it was actually the 54 of Brian Blackford. You had some varying strategies here. Most drivers going with fuel only. You had a couple of drivers take 2. A couple of drivers electing to put on 4 Goodyears.
This is an interesting strategy indeed, because while typically at a super speedway you'd see way more just fuel only stops because of the little tire wear that these tracks often have, this track is unique in the fact that all the bumps and the worn out surface wear out the tires way more than you would expect. So to see guys do fuel only stops is quite surprising to me. I would hope to at least see 2 tires, but Brian Blackford is going to benefit because of it, and we'll see how he comes out with this.
We talk about the different things that are going on here tonight. That wild card spot going to be determined. The champion of the Motorsports Drop Challenge going to be determined here tonight. Of course, those 11 drivers already locked into the playoffs, trying to figure out where their seating is going to be when we eventually begin the playoffs in 3 weeks' time at Las Vegas. But another thing as well that I found really interesting when I was checking everything out today is they've actually got a playoffs for their owner standings as well. The top 10 drivers, the top 10 teams in the owner standings after tonight, they will be in a 2004 type NASCAR playoff system as to who's going to win the owners championship when we get to that season finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
That's definitely going to be a points battle that we're going to have to be looking at as well. A very fun one indeed. Something to really make this series a lot more interesting on top of this awesome racing that we're seeing tonight. But another interesting thing is we saw Brian Blackford come back down pit road again after he came by. Maybe he wanted to take tires and had them unchecked for some reason, but that's going to put Nate Stewart into the lead and Spencer Ray on his outside.
Yeah, several drivers actually came down with him to either top off the fuel tank or maybe, to your point, able to take on some tires. Maybe didn't expect that some other drivers would be taking on tires here under this caution period, and they don't want to be off sequence. And you're right, it's kind of interesting. I've noticed a lot of drivers have done some interesting things here tonight with this being the wild card race. Nate Stewart, we're used to seeing him drive the 4. We're used to seeing Cole Freilich drive the 80. Well, those two drivers have swapped cars for the evening. They're both up here inside of the top 5, with Stewart going to be leading us back to green and Freilich back in the 5th position. But again, as well as to the point I was making about Matthew Zwack not in the field tonight with Matt Spalding in the 18. I mean, there's a lot of drivers that are locked into playoff positions that have maybe taken the night off or are trying to get some more owner points. It's really interesting, even with the varying strategy of who's behind the wheel of the respective race cars in this one. Green flag back in the air as we're 2 laps away from halfway here at Daytona. Nate Stewart with a really good jump. You've got Conrath in the 9 trying to push Spencer Ray. They're going to have a pretty good run here on the 80 heading into 1 and 2. Let's see what they can do with it.
He had a really big jump. He pulled out, I would almost go as far as to say too far, but it seems like it's going to work out for him, as Spencer Ray's not really going to try and go by him with the run that he had, and instead is going to push him as Garrett Conrath is kind of left out to dry in the outside lane.
A couple of drivers pulling out of line and dropping to the back. Nathan Rabideau in the 93 was one. The 51 of Kyle Lawrence Short, another one. Those drivers are pulling out of line and dropping to the back on purpose, trying to find themselves a safe places. We've still got half of this race to go. Whoa! Travis Brown getting a little bit of contact maybe there with Cole Freilich. That almost sent him into Conrath, but they all keep it straight for the time being.
You've got to remember, Travis Brown was in a wreck earlier in this race. He has front end damage and is leading this outside lane, and yet he's still able to keep some somewhat decent pace, but in contrast, Garrett Conrath behind him doesn't really have much front-end damage, so he would typically be the one you would expect to be leading this lane, and yet they're still able to run up on the leaders. I think that shows just how big of a run you can develop at this racetrack.
The driver just behind Cole Freilich as we look back from the rear of the Ford. That is the driver that was involved in the last caution. the 200 of Chris Davis. He's still apparently up to speed, and as long as I guess he's running behind another driver, that car still looks like it's competitive.
This is the first time I've ever seen a Whelen Modified be fast at Daytona Superspeedway, but I guess we're seeing a bunch of firsts tonight as Chris Davis really is wheeling that thing.
Yeah, at least seeing a Whelen Modified hit over 170 miles per hour at Daytona, that's for sure. But man, you gotta wonder if now he's just kind of boxed in to be a pusher and help get someone to the front, because I would have to assume that that car in no way is going to be able to lead a line to the front out in that clean air.
Well, we have some interesting news. Garrett Conrath has blown an engine behind the 34 of Travis Brown. Garrett Conrath is stuck on the high side of 3 and 4. His engine is gone. It has now expired, and he will be out of this race.
Trying to get that thing to pit road, and it looks like he will be able to do so safely. That is a tough break for Garrett Conrath, who was up in the top 5 all day long. Actually took a turn at the front for a good portion of the first half of this race, but now he is out of the running with about 48 laps to go when we come around this next time by. Matt Spalding, who actually got the lucky dog 2 cautions ago, he's now up here in the 4th position as it is Supra's 1, 2, 3, 4 heading into turn 3.
This is the storyline tonight. It's just people being where they should not be. I mean, Matt Spalding was pretty much out of this race like 15 laps ago. A lap down at the back, you know, slowed car because of a wreck, and yet here he is sitting in the 4th position comfortably in the race for the win if something were to happen. This race has been completely unpredictable tonight.
Other couple of drivers that we haven't even given TV time to. Let's do that right now as they're inside the top 10. Adam Sweet in the 55. There he is, right now slotted in 7th place. And 2 is outside, just behind that 34. That's Luke Breitschaft, as he's been able to work his way up to 8th. Those 2 guys having really good runs here. Now, granted, some of it could be because they've been able to avoid the early carnage, but hey, sometimes that's what you got to do at the super speedways. Wait until the storm dies down and then make your moves.
Well, another guy who is fantastic at that is our driver currently sitting in, I believe, the 12th position, Andy Margot. He's one that, he, in his own words, says that he pretty much gets lapped every race and he knows he's very slow. But tonight, he's been in the battle just purely off of avoiding wrecks tonight. He's got a perfectly clean race car and is racing inside the top 15. While we don't typically talk about him being a race winner, this is a surprising performance and we could see a shock tonight.
Yeah, that's the beauty of super speedway racing, because everybody's kind of on a level playing field. A lot of times it's all about positioning yourself in the right place at the right time. And with that being said, take a look at who's moved to the front. Gary Waterworth, oh, wreck in the back there. Breitschaft and Jake Pullen get together. Spencer Ray spins as well. We're going to have another big wreck, it looks like, in turns 3 and 4. Drivers trying to get on the brakes as they make their way in. Kyle Lawrence Short has to come to a stop as he's just behind that 00. 5th caution of the day, just past the halfway point.
There's also some playoff implications with that wreck as well, as Evan Rice in the 98 partially got involved with that. He has some significant right front damage with a T-bone contact as he went through the corner. That's going to affect his race car significantly.
I was worried for a moment there that Jake Pullen was going to possibly end up Austin Dillaning it. The transition of the racetrack and the apron. 3 wide with Spencer Ray, Breitschaft, and Poulin leads to that one. There's where you were talking about Evan Rice getting involved. Adam Sweet gets a piece of it. Oh, Kyle Lawrence Short, he was on the brakes going to get through. He got a little bit of help from behind by Ryan Naraki, and that's what sent him down to make that little bit of contact with the Hellman Chevrolet.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Kyle there. I've had that happen a couple times. There seems to be 2 agendas when people are coming up on a wreck at a super speedway. You have the guy who slows down and tries to wait for the wreck to dissipate, and the guy who tries to blow by the clear area as fast as possible. And when one of them is ahead of the other, usually there'll be an extra wreck that happens.
I would say Spencer Ray has been sideways here today at Daytona, maybe more than anybody, We saw him have that tremendous save, sliding all the way through 3 and 4 earlier on, and there again, after the contact of that 3-wide situation, able to keep the thing underneath him, and was able to drive away from the incident, still maintaining a spot inside of the top 5 as pit lane is open. Travis Brown down and away with a gas and go, so he'll be the winner off pit lane, and subsequently going to be our race leader when we get this thing back underway, as everybody on the lead lap was on pit lane this time.
Something interesting I've been noticed from watching some guys come down pit road is a big problem seems to be just getting stopped in your box. I don't know if these pit boxes are very slick or not, but a lot of guys are overshooting their pit box by a half a car length to a full car length at times. And that really mixes up the positioning of the field as they come off pit lane.
Let's take a look at our weather right now, and there you see it, 99 degrees outside, and the track temp, 132 degrees, so it is definitely slick out there. And as we know that the concrete surface has even less grip than the asphalt, so no surprise drivers having some issues getting into their pit stalls. And again, I know I'm being overly optimistic, but if we end up seeing this race potentially come down to a green flag pit stop, that's got to be in the back of these drivers' minds, because more than likely that green flag pit stop would be the money stop, maybe the pit stop that decides whether you're going to win this race or not. And if they're having difficulty getting into their stalls and stopping correctly here under caution, man, that's going to be a lot of pressure on them if it has to happen under green.
The only thing I have to say to that, though, Seth, is if I'm a driver in this race and I've seen this many wrecks happen with race cars racing at the front of the field, like the modified of Chris Davis, I would, by this point, my mental state would just be expect a wreck. Just race like you know a wreck is going to happen, because so far, if you've done that, you've pretty much made the right call, as there's so many wrecked race cars out on the racetrack. I mean, Travis Brown here at the front of the field's gotten in a wreck. Chris Davis in the third position's gotten in a wreck. Matthew Zwack's been in a wreck. I mean, pretty much everybody on the racetrack's been in a wreck, excluding only a couple people. Like right now, our 5th position driver, Andy Margo, who I mentioned earlier in the race, is fantastic at avoiding wrecks.
A lot of drivers with battle scars. Not sure what Travis Brown's doing here. Looks like he might be just having a little bit of fun on the back straightaway, as he is going to be the one that will be leading us back to green here. We saw the 73 of Jonathan Oates. He was the lucky dog here under this caution, and so he'll be back on the lead lap. We'll have 28 drivers on the lead lap of, I believe, 30 drivers still running. Mentioned about the engine expiring on Garrett Conrath. He is now in the garage area. Parker White and Jordan Worth, they are in the garage area as well. Add them to Brandon Hawken and the other drivers that we mentioned earlier: Brady, Corder, Wynn, Rush, Diallo, Bursk, and Liam Sheen. That is a total of 11 drivers out of the race at this point in time. Jack Painter 1 lap down, and Lane Tidwell currently 4 laps down. Painter still got a shot to get back in the lead lap. Not certain about 040 as the green flag back in the air. And look at how staggered this is. Obviously the choose cone available to these drivers, and only 3 drivers elected the top side here for this restart.
I would like to mention that in this series, the choose cone is not available. That was only available for the Cup series. So these drivers still lined up as their positions were, but these positions are drivers with damaged race cars on the bottom and 2 guys with less damaged race cars on the top. I mean, what are we even doing here that these drivers are still able to race side by side with how much damage some of these cars have?
Not sure, but how about Ryan Naraki? You talk about drivers that we haven't really mentioned with damage. He's trying to fight for that final playoff spot as the caution is out. Andrew Schwartz, I believe, was involved in this one. Luke Bryshop, Barry Waterworth. I think those drivers all may have gotten collected. This was over in the middle of 3 and 4 yet again.
Oh, and I'm checking my own replay. Another driver who actually was the cause of the incident, Evan Rice, again in another incident back to back. I mean, this is detrimental to his hopes in making the playoffs.
Especially with, as we were just mentioning, Ryan Naraki was making the charge to the front and is up inside of the top 5. Ooh, yeah, Cole Fralick. Contact with the 98. Schwartz hard into the wall, and also some contact there with, I believe that was Zach Hudson's 84. So at least a 4, maybe 5 car incident there, bringing out this yellow flag, and we'll set him up, get ready for another restart. This time it will be with less than 40 laps to go. And look who's made his way back up to the front yet again. I mean, my goodness, it has been an up and down day for Sean Butler. We saw him start on the pole position, got involved in a wreck, had to fight his way back up into the top 15, eventually the top 10, and then back up into the top 5. Got hit with the EOL penalty for the block that brought out the 3rd caution of the day, and he's now back up here to the front yet again. This 32, you mentioned it at the beginning. He's a guy that wants to win, wants that one in the win column, and man, he is working for it today.
That's something I've noticed with these bottom split associated drivers, is they seem to be very excellent at running these super speedway racetracks and staying out of trouble and being there at the end. I don't know what it is about this group, but they are fantastic at it, and Sean Butler is just an additive to that. He has been really good at almost any super speedway race I've seen him in, and we're seeing it again as he's been dominant for most of this race, running at the front of the field even when adversity hits.
Jack Painter back on the lead lap with the lucky dog. Casey Nemitz elects to stay out and will be our leader when we get ready to go back green flag racing, as there will be less than 40 laps left here in the motorsports drop to 50. We'll be back here for the green flag as we draw closer to the finish here at Daytona. We're going to go FRN side by side.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and team. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page.
Lights out atop the pace car. Officially, we're going back green flag racing here with 39 laps to go. Casey Nemitz electing the track position after this latest caution. He'll be bringing us back to green with Sean Butler to his outside. Matt Spalding and Travis Brown will make up row 2. Chris Davis and Brian Blackford in row 3. Andy Margot, Seth Noel, Cole Fralick, and Lucas Palesel are going to make up the remainder of the top 10. Jonathan Oates is going to be on the outside of row 6. Our points leader coming into this race, the only other driver, with the exception of Pancari and Poulin, who has a win this season as a full-time Grand National Series driver. He'll be on the outside of Gary Waterworth, and then you got Nate Stewart, Ryan Naraki, who's trying to get that final wildcard spot, and Kyle Lawrence Short. That's your top 15 as the green flag waves one more time here at Daytona International.
Their leader, Casey Nemitz, has a significant amount of damage, and we see it immediately as he falls back off of Sean Butler really hard going into turn 1. while we've seen a lot of drivers with a lot of damage still be able to keep up with the pack, his car is a little bit more damaged than some of these other ones.
See the back end all pushed in. I mean, how difficult is that for a driver like, say, the 18 of Matt Spalding right directly behind him to be able to push that 14 car?
Well, something bizarre I've noticed about a damaged car in the rear end is that when you're trying to push them, it just doesn't seem to want to get on their rear bumper. Like, even if you trust yourself to hit their rear bumper, for some reason you are just completely unable to. It's almost like there's a weird bubble right behind it that just stops you from hitting it, and it makes it a lot slower than it would be with somebody with a fixed rear bumper.
Ooh, look at there, Travis Brown ducking to the inside on Sean Butler. He picks up Cole Freilich, and those two going to try and make up some ground out of turn 2. Brown might be clear for the race lead here down the back straightaway, but now a third line forms. That's going to be Seth Knoll on the top. He's picked up Nate Stewart. Now Stewart going to cross him over into 3.
We are once again continuing this crazy racing. These guys just continue it. It's never non-stop. I mean, this is insanity here at the FTF Grand National Series, as again, they're locked bumpers trying to race for the lead, Seth Noel and Nate Stewart.
Now we talk about the locking of the bumpers, and we saw there that kind of 2-car tandem with Noel and Stewart on the back straightaway. We were talking there during the commercial break about, what might have led to the cause of the 9 of Conrath, his engine going south, and one thing we were talking about is the potential of the water temp spiking. I mean, these drivers have to be aware of that they can push a car out in front, but they can't stay locked too long, or else they might suffer the same fate as, what a block there by Seth Knoll down to turn 3.
Well, luckily these cars do have one safety feature that allows you to know when they're gonna start to overheat. Is going 3 wide for the lead, is that once you start to overheat, the dashboard starts to blink red, almost yelling at you that the car is overheating and you should probably stop doing what you're doing.
About that unsponsored 54, Brian Blackford, as you pointed out, making his debut here tonight. I mean, what a debut it would be if he could park that Chevy Camaro in victory lane. He's going to kind of, by a bubble, push the 32 out in front. Those two with a little bit of space back to Travis Brown. Brown has now picked up Chris Davis, as well as the 077 of Seth Noel. Let's see what kind of run they can generate from third place on back.
Well, something that we've noticed be a common trend tonight is that these runs just seem to come out of nowhere. No matter where you are, these runs will just develop and you'll start to go flying by people. No matter what you're doing, if you're the leader, it just seems to be, no matter what you try and do, is that they're once again going 3 wide. These runs are unstoppable.
That was close there, almost some contact between the 34 of Brown and the 77 of Seth Noel, who's actually going to get enough of a run to challenge Sean Butler for the top position. Nate Stewart looking to take his run somewhere as, a little bit of connection problems there for the 077. How disconcerting is that for the rest of the field when a car disappears?
Oh, that is the worst feeling in the world when the guy you're trying to push to suddenly disappears, because the last thing you want to have happen is you're trying to push him and then he disappears and you end up inside of him. More often than not, that'll end up causing a wreck. So Seth Noel is going to have to watch out for his own internet connection if he wants to try and race for this lead and get any help.
Talked about it there, back-to-back cautions, and the 98 of Evan Rice was involved. Well, he continues to soldier on. He's just outside the top 10 now in the 11th position, 4 spots ahead of Ryan Naraki. Right now, if the race were to end at this point in time, Evan Rice would be the final playoff contender.
Man, I was sure with him getting into 2 incidents that he'd just have too much damage to overcome, but it just seems to be the damage tonight has not been a problem. We've seen so many damaged race cars race at the front of the field. I mean, even the car in front of him is missing a whole front end. So I'm not surprised to see him racing this well. I'm just more surprised that everybody's racing this well.
Rich Jameson in the 86. He's now 4th on that outside line. We talk about underdog stories. That's a guy that's really struggled this season to be able to put together good finishes. Could Daytona be his opportunity to find victory lane as Nate Stewart trying to get that inside line going? He has Spencer Ray, another Supra, helping him, but it looked like maybe just a couple of cars there. Seth Knoll and I think that was Cole Freilich, they got a little loose on that bottom line. It broke up the run that they were going to generate on the back straightaway. Brian Blackford, though, he's going to go to the inside of Matt Spalding for second place, and he'll get alongside the 32 off of 4.
Brian Blackford tried to stay a little calmer earlier in this race and try and stay out of incidents, just barely tailing on to the back of the lead pack, but I think he's finally decided, with over half this race being over, that it's time to go. He wants to get to the lead and stay at the front for this final part of the race.
There is a lot of movement in this lead group. About 3-4 cars nearly lost it through the tri-oval, and a lot of times drivers will say that tri-oval was the most treacherous portion of this 2.5 mile super speedway because you're not on a straightaway, but you're not necessarily in a turn either, and that's what the car is set up for.
Yeah, the problem is the tri-oval is still enough to be called a turn, but doesn't have the banking of the turns, and so these cars are more set up to reduce drag and go over the bumps that are in the corners, but the tri-oval really doesn't have the bumps, but at the same time doesn't have the banking, and so it's just really slick going through that area.
Cole Freilich gonna pick up his teammate Nate Stewart. They're trying to make a charge to the front. 3 Supras all along on that inside line. Everybody else inside the top 10 migrating to the top along with race leader Sean Butler. Oh, that's gonna be Cole Freilich. A wrong bump there on the back straightaway sends him down towards the dogleg area of the Daytona road course. He's going to bring it back up onto the track, it looks like safely. No caution, but a ton of positions lost for the 4 car.
I mean, first of all, excellent save by Cole Freilich to stop that car from running back onto the racetrack and causing a wreck, and then being able to continue going while still being enough in the pack to try and catch a draft again.
A tuck-in line behind, I believe, Nathan Rabideau. Back in the 21st position is where he will resume, and we'll see if he can make any forward progress here. Obviously, that car very fast, but the field's somewhat broken up as well. You've got about 12 cars up in this lead pack, then you got another group of about 8 or 9. Then you got to go quite a ways back before you find some stragglers, and Jonathan Oates, Craig Hawkins, Jake Poulin outside of the top 20 is now inside line going to be led by the Red Bull Ford of Travis Brown. And do we have a green flag pit stop? We do. Brian Blackford's going to come down pit road all by his lonesome. I don't see this as unscheduled, but there's nobody coming down with him, which usually is a kind of a death nail for a driver at a super speedway.
Especially as we see him overshoot his box, that's going to hurt him even more, as he may even end up losing a lap because of it as well. I'm wondering why he's pitting, because nobody else seemed to want to pit with him, so I don't think fuel is the problem here. It must be a different issue altogether.
Only driver in the field right now that is off sequence with everybody else is Casey Nemitz, and that's only 2 or 3 laps difference between him and everybody else because he stayed out under the last caution as we had contact between the 34 and the 86. Jameson's around. He collects up Evan Rice. The caution is going to fly once again as Waterworth spins as well to the inside, and now that call by the 54 to come to pit road, it doesn't look so bad.
I'd say Brian Blackford just hit the lottery right there. The caution comes out right before the end of pit lane, meaning he was already coming off of pit lane when the caution comes out, which should mean that he was out on the racetrack at the time of caution, which should put him at the lead if everybody else is going to pit.
Another driver involved there that we saw down towards the inside wall was 51 of Kyle Lawrence Short. Go back and take a look at what happened. It started, I believe, with contact between the 34 and the 86. It puts Jameson into the wall, and I think he just bounces off the wall back down into, I think it might have been the 12 of Waterworth.
It seems like Travis Brown just kind of got up into Rich a little bit and put him up into the wall, and as that happens, he comes down across the racetrack and collects a few extra cars, which do include Evan Rice once again getting into another wreck tonight. I mean, this day is not going well for him, yet even despite that, he still was able to run somewhat close to the front of the field.
Doesn't look like he sustained a lot of damage there. Now, we've seen he's been pretty competitive, able to at least keep Ryan Naraki behind him, which of course is that battle for the final playoff spot here with this wild card race here tonight at Daytona. So we'll see if he can still have the speed to keep Naraki at bay. Naraki was able to cross the start-finish line to the 10th position there, coming back to the yellow flag, but both those drivers on pit lane right now, as it looks like only 2 drivers electing to stay out under this yellow flag, Seth Knoll and Nathan Rabideau. We haven't talked a whole lot about Nathan Rabideau here tonight. He's already locked into the playoffs through points. He was actually the highest driver in points to lock himself into the playoffs. Andrew Schwartz, who's right behind him, was second highest, but Rabideau, I don't know if it's that he's just been kind of staying out of trouble, waiting to make his move, or what the case has been, because this is about the first time all day we've seen him make an appearance inside the top 5.
Yeah, Nathan Rabideau really has not been a story tonight. He's just kind of stayed out of everything, but maybe that was the plan. I mean, there's a lot of drivers who really were not a story in the real-life Daytona race we saw a week ago, and yet they were there at the finish, hence somebody like Matt DiBenedetto who stayed at the back, and Nathan Rabideau seemed to take a similar strategy, and as we're reaching 25 laps to go, here he is in second place at the front of the field.
We were documenting that the timing of that caution looked like it was going to benefit Ryan Blackford, but he just came back down pit road, and he's been sitting on pit lane now for going on 4 minutes, so not certain what the situation is there. It has lost him 2 laps. So what looked like was actually going to play to his benefit. All of a sudden, he is very quickly evaporating from the picture of potentially winning this race, and 2 other drivers whose night is going to come to an early end. Kyle Lawrence Short, he's now pulled his car to the garage area, as has the 16 of Craig Hawkins. So those 2 are going to be finishing this race more than likely around the 29th and 30th positions, respectively. Winner off pit road was Sean Butler. He'll line up behind the front row of Seth Knoll and Nathan Rabideau. Matt Spalding will be 4th. This caution helping Casey Nemitz get back on sequence, as he'll be 5th. Lucas Palesso in 6th. Chris Davis, Travis Brown, Jonathan Oates, and Ryan Naraki are going to complete the top 10. The battle for that final playoff spot with Naraki in 10th place. Evan Rice actually back down pit road again here, coming to the 1 to green. Looks like he'll be restarting back outside the top 20, around the 21st position, but still 25 laps to go here, Alex. So still a long ways to go. A lot of things can happen between now and the checkered flag.
And a lot of things have happened between the start of the race and to the end of this race, because so many cars in the field have wrecked that I don't even think I know how many have wrecked by this point. I mean, Seth Noel's been in an incident earlier in the race, and Matthew Zwack's been in an incident, Sean Butler's been in an incident, Casey Nemitz has. I mean, the 45 of Lucas Plussel is missing a rear end, and there he is in the 6th position. There's so many cars that are wrecked out right now, who knows what can happen from this point on.
Certainly has turned into a survival of the fittest race here for these drivers, and it may end up becoming even more of that type of a situation by the time we get to the end, as Seth Knoll back up through the gears, going to try and see if he can clear the 93 before they get to turn 1. We'll see if he tries to tuck up in line. Sean Butler is going to get up behind Nathan Rabideau, and I think he might actually give that 93 a nice push there through 1 and 2. Seth Knoll, no drafting help on the inside line, as he's outnumbered 3-1.
Well, if there's any significant thought behind this, I would figure Sean Butler wanted to work with Nathan Rabideau sheerly for the fact that Seth Noel has been a threat for the win the whole night alongside him, and Nathan Rabideau really has not, so pushing him out to the lead and leaving Seth out to dry could be part of the strategy.
Could also be as well, the 93 is maybe the most pristine looking car on the racetrack right now, so maybe the most aerodynamically sound and the fastest car in a straight line, that 077 with some battle scars in the front and back of his machine. But now Butler gonna go around the outside of Nathan Rabideau, and another thing I found interesting is now Noel's gonna go up the middle 3 wide. Sean Butler working with the 93. Remember, these two are playoff contenders, so why would you help push somebody out in front that could potentially snipe away some playoff points from you?
Well, we just saw he was just in the lead literally half a lap ago, and now he's fallen way out of contention. Now he's actually dropping out of it on the apron. I mean, you saw how quickly he lost position. It just seems to be so easy to go from the lead to the back of the pack with these big runs that it could be part of the bait to just have some guy like that out front, because you could leave him out to dry in that second position.
Wow, close there for the race lead as Seth Knoll almost got into Sean Butler. Cole Fralick's going to cross the 32 over, though. He's going to look for the top spot here through the tri-oval and heading for turn 1. He's been able to pick up Nate Stewart. Now, the last time these two teammates were lined up nose to tail, we saw Fralick go for an adventure on the back straightaway. So I'm certain right now he's telling Nate, hey, bump me square.
And I'm sure he hopes he continues to do it, as this was the problem spot last time by. Seth Noella, who I thought was going to push him, ends up going to the middle, going 3 wide. And, you know, the guy who I keep looking at this whole time is the 200 of Chris Davis. How is he here? What is he doing without a front end? Because I am, frankly, just, like, mouth open, mouth to the floor, watching him race at the front of the field.
It doesn't make any sense, that's for sure, the physics of it. One thing I can guarantee you, though, is, you know, we're talking about drivers locking bumpers and trying to make sure that they also get the clean air to the engine. I don't think he's got a problem with that. There's plenty of ventilation to be able to get clean air to that engine if he's up against somebody's back bumper.
I believe he's the only driver on the racetrack that could probably run the whole race locked to some guy's bumper with how much there's missing on that car. But there's plenty of more racing to go on the racetrack. I think we should kind of strive away from the modified for a minute.
And one thing we have to bear in mind as well, 100 scheduled laps, that doesn't necessarily mean that we may not have to use all 3 of our overtime green-white checkers as well. So we're going to have to see how aggressive it's going to be in the final 10 laps of this race, because if these final 25 laps are going to be any indication, we may be seeing some 4 wide racing all the way through the field. They were 3 wide, 2 rows deep just there exiting the tri-oval.
Yeah, and I would almost go as far as to say I will bet you that they're going to end up using some of those green-white checkers, because with how this race has been going, if they don't end under green-white checkered, I'm just going to question if they're making the show as good as we've been seeing tonight.
Keeping an eye on that battle for the final playoff position. Right now, Ryan Araki running in the 15th spot. It looks like that last incident we saw Evan Rice involved in, that may have been possibly the nail in the coffin of his championship hopes. He is running all by his lonesome back in the 23rd position. So now he is hoping that the 0-2 runs into some problems here in the final 20 laps of this race as the movement continues up here at the front. It's now around the 6th, 7th position as the top 5 got themselves single filed out. As soon as I say that, Spencer Ray gonna dive to the bottom on Chris Davis for 3rd.
Yeah, Chris Davis is in 3rd. I know I said to stop talking about him, but he just keeps impressing with that car. It shouldn't belong where it is. And as I'm looking around the field, I think I found the person he's supposed to be soulmates with in Lucas Plosel, who's missing his rear end. If they connect bumper to bumper, we might have one whole race car.
Right now, Plosel in that 9th position, up inside of the top 10. There you see him 4th on the inside line as Spencer Ray, he was working with Nate Stewart, pushing the 80 to the front. Now he's got Cole Fralick pushing him. Nate Stewart has Sean Butler in his rearview mirror now. These are 2 guys, the 80 and the 32, who are still searching for their first win on the season, looking to carry those important 5 playoff points into our race in 3 weeks' time at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Earlier in the show, I'd brought up that Sean Butler had won a race in FTF just yesterday night on a super speedway in this series. So he has experience winning at this kind of racetrack, and he's definitely showing it as he's been at the front of the field. As Seth Noel gets really loose on the bottom lane, he's going to lose a lot of positions, and now Sean Butler once again is going for the lead.
A lot of momentum lost for that 077 as now the Supras gang up against the blue oval. It's going to be Stewart and Freilich. They're going to go to the top two spots. Spencer Ray looks to follow them to third. Sean Butler looks back in his rearview mirror. Here comes Chris Davis, but maybe a little too late as Butler's going to drop outside of the top three coming down the back straightaway. Now the Toyotas move up to the top to block Butler getting a run down the backstretch.
Cole Freilich has been left in the middle to dry by his teammate. Now he's stuck down there. All the drivers are going around his outside and inside. Oh, it's getting a little nervous here. I'm not a huge fan of what's about to happen. Lucas Blussel really loose on the bottom lane. He saves it. Great save. Sean Butler. Oh, no. We're having...
Cole Freilich and Casey Nemitz together there just past the pit road exit. Again, amazing that more drivers were not involved with where that contact started.
I was sure Sean Butler was going around there, and yet somehow he saved it, and the wreck happened to the car right in front of him.
Only driver that basically had to drive away from the incident was the 14 of Casey Nemitz. Let's go back and take a look. As you pointed out, it really all started with the 32 getting loose in the tri-oval. Everything else was reactionary, I think, to maybe thinking that Butler was not going to be able to keep that thing underneath him.
Chris Davis had actually gotten into his rear end and kind of got Sean Butler loose. He managed to save it, but the wreck happened beside them. Casey Nemitz and Cole Freilich getting together, and Casey Nemitz being stuck sideways after the end of pit lane.
Saw the 55 of Adam Sweet. Looks like he may have gotten a little bit of that with the front end of his machine. As pit road is open, this next time by, I do believe. Yeah, the field just now going to be catching up to the pace car. Oh, what do you think here, Alex? Do you give up the track position potentially, come down pit road, top off that fuel tank, knowing that there is the likelihood we could see all three overtime green-white checkers, or is it just too crazy back there to put yourself back in that storm?
Well, I'm not sure. When you say that, I'm curious as to what your meaning of where the storm is, because it looks like the storm has been at the front of the field the entire race. I mean, almost every single wreck, aside from maybe like one or two, have been right at the front, at the top five. So honestly, if you're not going to pit here, I'm curious as to what you're trying to do, because pitting just seems to be the thing that gets you out of danger.
That's fair enough, as pits were open, and Sweet's going to be one of the first to dive onto pit lane from the 5th position. That's Spalding, Nathan Rabideau, Rudy Valentine. Boy, you were talking about him and the likeness of this Legacy Daytona to Monza. Haven't really mentioned him much here in the second half of this race, but he's still on the lead lap, still in the hunt for this thing. Emmett's back down pit road. Brent Pancari, Hagenstein, Freilich, they're all coming down to the attention of their crews. Some of them might be getting some damage repairs. Some of them might be getting on some fresh Goodyear tires. And, of course, I'm certain that the majority of them, if not all of them, are making sure they get that thing packed full of fuel.
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, you brought up Rudy Valentine and him being a chance winner with that similarity to Monza, but honestly, as of right now, what I've seen so far in this race, it looks like there's about maybe 4 or 5 drivers who I'd say he would have to beat due to their dominance in this race so far. That would be Spencer Ray, Nate Stewart, Sean Butler, Seth Noel, and then maybe Cole Freilich, I would say, because they've just been at the front of the field for almost this entire race, especially with the partnership between Nate Stewart and Cole Freilich that's allowed them to just pretty much go with each other at any opportunity. those 5 strong drivers are going to be hard for anybody else to beat tonight.
I'm not certain if there's an alliance or if Spencer Ray is a teammate as well to Stewart and Freilich, but we've seen though all 3 of those Toyota Supras working together here, and you got to wonder at some point in this race, when does the alliance break off? But because we know there's a certain number of drivers have in their heads where teammates go out the window. It's every man for himself, and the first one back to the start-finish line gets that checkered flag. Lane Tidwell got the lucky dog under this caution. He was already 4 laps down, now -3. The likelihood of any of our lap machines getting back on the lead lap and having a shot for this victory, pretty slim to none with the limited number of laps we have left in this race. Tidwell 3 laps down. Zach Hudson, who we saw very slow on the apron on that last run, he is now 11 laps down, and Andrew Schwartz currently 12 laps down. Those are the last cars running, 25th through 27th. There are 24 cars on the lead lap, back to Luke Breitschoff in that 28 machine. And as we pointed out, right now, there's only maybe a handful of those 24 that look like they are competitive enough to battle for this victory. But then again, when you look at guys like Chris Davis, the looks could be deceiving. There could be some guys that are playing their hand a little close to the chest, haven't really shown what they've got just yet, even though they may be sustaining some damage. So could be some names that we haven't mentioned for the last 20, 30, 40 laps that all of a sudden could be in the forefront of our screens as we draw closer to 10 laps to go.
Well, the damaged car soulmates of Chris Davis and Lucas Plussel are lining up bumper to bumper, and while they may be in the reverse order as to what I was talking about, the fact that these 2 cars are at the front of the field with as much damage as they have really should just show that anybody has a chance at winning this race, no matter how much damage you have. Unless if you have significant engine damage, pretty much anybody can keep up in the pack with whatever iRacing did to this drafting package.
Definitely incredible. As a matter of fact, Lucas Palesel started out this season at Daytona with a top 5 finish, rated home in 5th place. So we'll see if he can go for back-to-back Daytona top 5s. As Spencer Ray is going to get us back under the green. Sean Butler follows him into 2nd. He'll break up those Toyota Supras with Nate Stewart back in the 3rd spot. It's going to be Travis Brown, the 34, trying to get something going on the inside.
I feel like I should have possibly mentioned Travis Brown as one of those strong cars that could possibly win this race. He's been a car that has been at the front of the field. The only problem is I feel like he's at the front of the field in flashes, because at one point he'll be at the front of the field racing for the lead, and then another he'll be in the mid-pack totally out of the picture. So while he has been strong, I feel like he has to be at the front of the field to be strong, and that's where he is right now.
Keep an eye on the front of the field, but also look top of your screen. We've got the 0-2 of Ryan Araki right now in the 13th position. Evan Rice only 3 positions back in 16th place. That's the battle for the final wild card spot to get into the playoffs, and it is hot and heavy here, closing on 10 laps to go. Those 2 are not done with that battle.
Yeah, racing side by side in the mid-pack. Those 2 are really determined to go. Ryan Araki actually does have a little bit of damage from an earlier incident, and while it's not as much as somebody like Evan Rice, it makes a little bit of a difference, bringing those 2 drivers a little closer together pace-wise.
Rice now up to 10th. Araki dropping back to 18th. We very nearly just had a caution there in the back straightaway. Whoa! Contact there with Palesel. And I believe that was Brown. No, oh no, there goes Spalding into Evan Rice. Evan Rice again collected up in another incident as he was again making a charge to the front.
Evan Rice was a man on a mission. He went from the middle of the pack right at the front of the field, almost into the top 10, within a quarter of a lap, only to get spun through the tri-oval by Matthew Zwack. I'm not really sure what the mission was there for him to try, or sorry, Matt Spalding, my mistake, for him to get back on track, but that was not the move in my opinion.
Take a look at what happened here. Saw another car that was out of shape just around this area. I think it was Palesel in the 45. Yeah, he got into the left rear quarter panel of Chris Davis. I think that Spalding moved low as a reaction, and to your point, yeah, trying to merge up there in the tri-oval, getting into Evan Rice. But Evan Rice actually did a heck of a job saving that thing. As a matter of fact, when the caution came out and the field was frozen, he was only 2 spots behind Ryan Araki and really didn't tear up that 98 at all. So with the run we saw him be able to put together there, actually, they've got him scored in the 7th position. This car never went around. So with that being said, I think he maintained speed, and they're actually going to keep him in 7th place where he was running at the time that yellow flag waved.
He was lucky because the administration had thrown the caution quick enough to not allow him to lose many spots during that incident, and because of when the caution came out, he was able to drive back into what position he was in. So lucky break for Evan Rice, and honestly, I believe he deserves it because that was just kind of one of those things where, yes, it's a wreck and they spun, but I don't believe he deserved to be knocked back for that one. That was just kind of a big mistake by Matt Spalding.
Boy, if it ends up being Evan Rice who gets that 12th and final spot in the playoffs, we might be able to go back there to lap 89 and pinpoint that as the moment of the race of him being able to keep that thing pointed in the right direction and hold on to the spot he was running at the time the caution was thrown. He's going to be, with pit stops notwithstanding possibly here, in the 7th position. Ryan Araki, as we saw dropping through the field, he will be restarting right now unofficially in 17th. But Spencer Ray, right now the race leader, trying to pick up his first victory on the season. He's a driver who could make things interesting in terms of the playoffs and the playoff points handed out, as he could very easily take away a driver's opportunity for those 5 playoff points. Sean Butler, Nate Stewart, Lucas Palesel, these are guys up here, Gary Waterworth, who would love to have those 5 bonus points heading into Las Vegas in a few weeks' time. But if Spencer Ray is able to keep them all at bay, that's going to keep the points even closer by the time we end up beginning the postseason.
There's a driver I'd very quickly like to just make note of, currently sitting in the 9th position, is the 12 car of Gary Waterworth. He's just been having a very quiet day today. We haven't really brought him up much, but he's kept his car pretty clean. He stayed out of most wrecks, and every now and then I've seen little flashes of pace. He may be a surprise dark horse that we haven't really talked about all day that could come out here with a good finish.
He has without doubt been a very consistent driver here, especially down the second half of the regular season, pointing his way into the playoffs. And I agree with you. We saw him actually be able to make his way up to the front of the field earlier on in this race before getting caught up in a wreck, but that car still looks like it's up to speed, competitive, and may have something here for the 8 drivers starting up ahead of him here for the upcoming restarts. It'll be Ray taking the inside, Butler on the top side. He's got a Toyota lined up behind him, does Ray, in Nate Stewart. Top side, it's going to be blue ovals as Travis Brown will roll off from 4th place. Palesel and Chris Davis will make up row 3. Evan Rice and Seth Knoll in row 4. And then Nathan Rabideau on the top side of Gary Waterworth in row 5. And keep an eye back there on that 6th row, because you've got our Monza winner, Rudy Valentin, in there, as well as Andy Margo, as you pointed out, could be one of those dark horse drivers that could make his way up here and pull off a Cinderella story at Daytona. Still 8 laps to go in regulation here, with those potential overtime green-white checkers looming. We'll see what happens here. Less than 10 to go in the wild card race in the FTF Grand National Series. Pace car pulls down. Is it for the final time today? We'll wait and see as the Toyotas up through the gears. Nate Stewart, great jump, pushes Spencer Ray out in front. Both cars not going to get clear though. Whoa, Jonathan Oates back there out of shape. Nice save through the tri-oval, as it will be side by side between Butler and Spencer Ray through 1 and 2. Let's see what happens here off the second corner. Can Ray clear the 32 up on the top side, or will he stay down with his fellow Supra Nate Stewart?
Evan Rice, one of the most unfortunate drivers of the day, is racing here at the front of the field, right in the middle of the pack, gets that lucky caution and actually got some extra damage. He's missing his rear bumper, and yet here he is racing at the front of the field. I think he's decided that it's time to go, and somebody else who's decided it's time to go because of that is Ryan Naraki, who gets pushed in the wall.
That's Valentine Rabideau.
Oh,
Andy Margot. Oh.
Andy Margot hammered the inside pit wall. Oh, man.
Gary Waterworth was in that one as well. Nathan Rabideau in the 93. For the most part today, had been able to keep his name out of drivers involved in wrecks. I think we've got the potential to be able to go back green here within regulation. There'll only be a handful of laps left, but go back and see what exactly happened here. Is I think Rabideau was one of the first drivers I saw out of shape, and have also been the 18 of Rudy Valentine that was in the middle that may have gotten a little squirrely as well.
I believe I must have cursed a couple drivers because I was talking about Gary Waterworth. You saw him on the right side of the screen. He's got into the wall. Andy Margot got into the wall. See Ryan Naraki there. Rudy Valentine was backwards coming onto pit lane. I mean, pretty much every driver I had mentioned being notable before this restart has now wrecked in the same wreck.
They took some hard shots, did Andy Margot and Gary Waterworth. We're going to ride on board with the 48 here. Just watch the movement as they were 3 wide, about 3 rows deep here, just ahead of that U.S. Army Ford. Oh, nowhere to go as he tries to move up to avoid. Rabideau is to his right, and yeah, that's a hard shot there. I know it's a safer barrier, but it doesn't matter if it's a safer barrier or not. That's going to create a lot of damage on the front end of his machine, and driver that was looking like he could very well be up there to get a top 10 finish today, now going to have to kind of ride out the final 5 or so laps of this race, salvage what he can.
Well, the one good thing that this wreck created is that it made the battle for that wild card position just that much closer, as now Evan Rice is sitting in the 6th position and Ryan Naraki is only in the 10th position. So now they're both very close to each other with less than 5 laps to go in this race. This is gonna get heated.
Both those drivers inside of the top 10. All that the one or the other has to do is finish 1 position better, and they're going to be taking that final 12th playoff position. I found it interesting there that we're talking about Evan Rice feeling it was time to go. I also noticed that Ryan Naraki, who the last couple of restarts prior was actually dropping through the field, that time he maintained his spot and was actually making forward progress up the middle line. So apparently both these drivers realizing the gravity of the situation, the fact that the laps are ticking down, and now there's no opportunity to play it safe. You've got to go for broke at this point in time.
Yeah, the one thing I think I believe what Ryan Naraki would have noticed is that even though Evan Rice right in front of him crashed multiple times, he still ended up blowing right by him, and on the previous restart he just went right up to the front and started racing at the front of the field, and I think that was the trigger in his mind that went, wow, me staying in the back really didn't do as much for me as I would have hoped, as now he's gonna have to line up just a couple rows behind him and somehow find a way past him.
Ryan Naraki in the season opener at Daytona finished that race in the 23rd position. Evan Rice in the 98 never even took the green flag as he failed to qualify for that race. So who would have thought for those two drivers further down the road, 27 races later, it was going to come down between those two for that final playoff position, as now it's going to be an all Toyota Supra front row with Spencer Ray and Nate Stewart. Sean Butler will be the highest Ford in 3rd place, and Lucas Palesso the highest running Chevrolet, as he will be in the 4th position. And all of a sudden, we're starting to see the Chevrolets emerge up here more towards the front than maybe we've seen most of the day. Chris Davis up there, Evan Rice, Seth Knoll there as well. And you gotta wonder, is there a driver-to-driver alliance that will go on here in the final couple of laps? Is there a manufacturer alliance, or is it just gonna be that old saying, I'll work with whoever as long as they keep me up here at the front or move me to the front?
I think by this point it's just a matter of get yourself to the front, and I honestly don't even care who I'm working with. I may not work with anybody, but I'm going to the front of the field.
23 cars still on the lead lap, which means being a super speedway, they've still got a shot at this victory. Spencer Ray back up through the gears. It'll be 4 laps to go at Daytona. Can we make it back and receive the white flag? Any caution between now and that white flag would send us into overtime. As look at Nate Stewart stepping out of line. No help on the top as Sean Butler leaves him out to dry and will follow in the tire tracks of the 19.
Yeah, Sean Butler's actually getting a little boxed in here as Nate Stewart's kind of stuck to his outside. Oh, he's going to almost move him up the track, it looked like, and get to his inside. He has 2 damaged race cars behind him, and yet he's still going up to the front of the field. I just can't stop talking about these damaged race cars. They actually have a shot at winning this race with how much damage these 2 cars have. I'd be in tears if I see one of them win.
There's the alliance you talked about. Palesel has the 200 of Davis behind him. Let's see if they can lock those bumpers up there as outside line prevails through the tri-oval. What a block there by Nate Stewart on Seth Knoll, who tried to take it 3 wide at the start-finish line.
There's some crazy blocking going on by Nate Stewart. Nate Stewart is making every single move he needs. He's starting to look like Joey Logano with how hard he's starting to block, but he's also at the same time giving an incredible shove to Spencer Ray at the front of the field. It just doesn't end with these guys. They're going really hard. Set the well with a hard bump to the back end as he disappears for an instant.
Nice save back there by Cole Freilich, who got the wall out of turn 2, able to keep it together. We stay under the green flag at this point in time. A lot of movement around the 4th, 5th position, though. That's where Evan Rice tries to hold off Lucas Palesel. He's getting to shove his Rice from Adam Sweet. On the bottom, it is Chris Davis helping the 45. 3 wide. Oh, no, there's Spencer Ray off the nose, and I believe that was Nate Stewart. Seth Knoll is involved as well. Cole Freilich gets a little piece. Now more drivers getting involved here, heading down towards turn 1.
Man, I wanted to bring up how, like, astonishing it was to see Sean Butler with no help being able to stay side by side with the leaders. I mean, that was incredible up until we ended up seeing the wreck. I mean, he had to side draft really hard to keep up with them, and it ended up causing an incident.
Let's see what happened to Spencer Ray, who was the leader at the time. They were 3 wide behind him. I think it might have been Nate Stewart getting into him. We'll see if maybe with that aggressive side draft, if maybe it was the 32 of Sean Butler. Coming down into the tri-oval, and oh yeah, I think actually it was that side draft. Seth Knoll, Lucas Palesel gets a piece, Cole Freilich gets a piece. I believe that further back there, the Lane Tidwell car actually got involved. I think he might have gotten Freilich. Rudy Valentine might have been involved. He was way down in the grass. And maybe even the 73 of Jonathan Oates might have gotten a little bit of that. We'll document a couple of those, see if indeed they were involved here. As this caution now, as stated, it sends us into overtime.
There's a lot more drivers that got in this incident than I believe should have. 040 here of Lane Tidwell, 1 lap down. Oh, he just nicks him. He had a chance to get back on the lead lap, and that's just unfortunate for him.
And while that hurts him, that actually is going to help 48 of Andy Margot, who had lost a lap just moments ago in the latest caution. Not being involved in the incident, he should be the driver getting the free pass here and getting back on the lead lap. So as stated, we do have the opportunity of at least 3 green-white checkers. The first 2, it will have the opportunity to take the green, come around to the white flag, and then the next flag will end the race. If we end up getting to that 3rd and final green-white checkered, Doesn't matter what happens during the course of that 2-lap shootout, they will race back to the checkered flag no matter what. And you said it earlier, Alex, we may end up using all 3 of those overtime green-white checkers, especially with the movement we've seen here in the final 30 laps.
Well, for one, I told you so, because I told you that we were going to end up going past the 100 lap mark. But there's something else I want to bring up right now. We're talking about this wildcard battle. Evan Rice is in the 3rd position. He actually has a chance to win the race from where he is. He managed to survive that incident with the leaders, get by it, and he's in the 3rd position, while Ryan Araki is still there in the 9th position, only 1 spot higher than he was on the last restart. This could be a golden opportunity here for Evan Rice, but he has to make sure that he doesn't go too far with it, because if he wrecks, he hands his playoff spot over to Ryan Araki.
Definitely, but to your point, maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone if he's able to not only... Last second, I just noticed Sean Butler came to pit road. Is that an EOL potentially for the contact bringing out that yellow flag? Because he would have rolled off from 2nd place. Now Evan Rice would be rolling off from 2nd place.
Yeah, Sean Butler had just pulled over and used the tow function to bring himself back to the pit. So now Evan Rice will line up in the 2nd spot. I mean, I just mentioned that he has a chance to win the race. Well, now here he is leading a lane, coming on to 1 to go. This is a golden opportunity for him. He really can get this done as long as he doesn't wreck.
Definitely can. And again, back to what I was going to say before, I was noticing Butler was not up here at the front. If he wins this race, he's not only guaranteed himself a spot into the playoffs with that wild card position, but he picks up 5 playoff points when the point standings get reformatted and these drivers begin the playoffs in 3 weeks' time at Las Vegas. So here's how they stack up here for the first attempt at an overtime green-white checkered. Nate Stewart's going to be the leader. Evan Rice in 2nd place. Adam Sweet will be 3rd. Travis Brown 4th. Lucas Palesso and Chris Davis will be the top 6, followed by Tristan Hagenstein. Ryan Araki trying to get up there to that 98 for that final playoff position. He'll restart in 8th. Brett Pancari looking to go for his 2nd Super Speedway win of the season. He will be 9th, and Nathan Rabideau will complete the top 10. Rudy Valentine is 11th, Casey Nemitz in 12th, Cole Freilich in 13th, Rich Jameson 14th, 15th will be Jonathan Oates. Got some connection problems there for Luke Brightshoff. He was supposed to restart in 16th place. We'll see if he returns back onto the track or not. Spencer Ray, who was involved in that latest caution, he drops back to restart in 17th. Jake Poulin, Jake Painter, Matt Spalding going to complete the top 20. Looks like that 040 of Lane Tidwell actually did get the lucky dog here under this caution, so he will restart in 21st, and Gary Waterworth will restart 22nd place. They, along with Seth Noel back in 23rd, look like they're going to be the drivers on the lead lap to finish this thing out. As here we go. Overtime green-white checkered attempt number 1. Can we make it back to the white flag? We're going to have to wait and see. Pace car ready to turn him loose. Even start between the 2 drivers on the front row, but the 55 was locked up to the bumper of the 80 there. Now Brown pulls up to the bumper of Evan Rice. Inside line looks like it's going to prevail going into the first couple corners.
Adam Sweet, who had started all the way in the 42nd position at the start of this race, is in the 2nd spot, who has a chance to win the race. Lucas Blusso kind of gets off on the apron. He manages to save it. Great move. And now here comes 2 drivers we haven't really talked about a lot all day. Tristan Hagenstein and Brett Bucari. Oh my gosh.
Double wide, 3 wide, almost 4 wide. Back out to side by side now. Sweet on the bottom, Stewart on the top. I can't believe it. We're going to make it back to the white flag. Let's see what happens in this final 2.5 miles.
And look who's there, 3rd row on the inside, Rudy Valentine, our Monza winner. He's in contention for the win here at the end of the race. I can't believe it.
Keep an eye on the orange car on the top side, the 98 of Evan Rice. The car on the inside, about 2 rows back, that's going to be Ryan Araki. That's the final playoff spot going on behind the side-by-side battle for the lead down the back straightaway. Sweet on the bottom, Stewart on the top. Keep an eye on the second and third rows as Naraki trying to make a move down there. 3 wide back there in the midway portion. Still side by side through 3.
Oh, there it
no.
is. There's the wreck. Naraki's in it.
And that's going to ice it for Evan Rice. What about the battle to the start-finish line? Nate Stewart clears Hagenstein. Hagenstein dives to the inside. Photo finish. Nate Stewart's first win of the season will take place in the regular season finale at Daytona.
What a phenomenal race tonight. Drivers coming for the win right at the end of the race. Drivers that just we had not talked about all day comes in late to try and win, but the driver who'd been at front for most of the race, Nate Stewart, ends up coming away with the win.
Nate Stewart, we're used to seeing him week after week in the number 4. Today he takes over the number 80 machine, and maybe that brought him some good luck, as he's going to be carrying some 5 valuable playoff points into the playoffs in a few weeks' time, and he's going to get to burn it down for the first time this season in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. The gap at the start-finish line between himself and Hagenstein, 41 thousandths of a second. Adam Sweet crosses in third, and Evan Rice will secure the final and 12th playoff position as he brings that 98 home in the 4th spot. But man, did he have to work for it today.
Yeah, everybody had to work for their position today. There was no mercy handed out for any of these positions. Every single person had to battle as hard as possible to get their position, because it just seemed to be nobody ever got calm in this race. There was constant action from start to finish, and it was an absolutely phenomenal one to watch.
Nate Stewart started this race from the 13th position. Pretty much the entirety of the second half of this race was up inside the top 5. Up front when it mattered the most, threw some really good blocks to keep everyone in his rearview mirror, and then when the dust settled off of turn 4, he was able to hold off a hard-charging Tristan Hagenstein to edge him at the line, pick up his first win on the season, and this may be maybe the longest burnout of the season. The elation, obviously, there for Nate Stewart, realizing that not only has he taken a checkered flag here in FTF, but he's also going to put himself in a very nice seeding in the reformatted playoff points.
Yeah, this is going to be some fantastic momentum heading into the playoffs for Nate Stewart, a driver who is typically extremely consistent running in this series, and he finally pulls off the win he's been looking for since the beginning of the season, and it's going to definitely help him make it through the rounds from here on out.
Take a look at the finishing results from this one. We said about the midway portion of this race, it might come down to survival of the fittest. That's certainly what it was there on that first and only overtime green-white checkered, as we gave you the top 4. Travis Brown is going to be able to hang on for the 5th position. Chris Davis, no front end, the modified, comes home in 6th. Spencer Ray, who got involved in the last caution from the race lead, was able to make his way through all the carnage there on that final lap to still bring it home inside the top 10 in 7th. Rudy Valentine will be 8th. Jack Painter and Jonathan Oates, who both found themselves a lap down early in this race, they're going to come home in 9th and 10th. And with that 10th place finish, congratulations to Jonathan Oates, as he's going to be the winner of the Motorsports Drop Challenge here this season. Jake Poulin's going to be 11th. Lucas Palessel's going to bring it home 12th. That's a couple of playoff contenders who are going to have some good momentum heading into Las Vegas. Jameson got the lucky dog under the last caution. He gets a top 15 and 13th. Matt Spalding, Nathan Rabideau will complete the top 15. And then it was Freilich, Naraki, Tidwell, Nemitz, and Pankari who are going to complete the top 20. And they were the last drivers to finish this race on the lead lap. On down to Seth Knoll, those were the drivers that finished the race. 24th on down were drivers who either finished this race on pit road getting damage repaired or back in the garage areas. No doubt here tonight, Daytona took no prisoners.
Daytona did not take any prisoners tonight. This was probably some of the roughest racing I've ever seen ever on iRacing at a super speedway. I mean, there was just action, chaos, wrecks, beating and banging left and right. I mean, it never ended from start to finish. I was screaming, telling them to calm down, but they never stopped. It looked like a demolition derby going 200 mile an hour, and yet they came out with a great race with cars that didn't belong anywhere near the front of the field, having great races.
And you have to wonder what led to the aggressive racing that we saw all night long from the start to the finish. Was it the setup? Was it the Legacy Daytona? Was it the way that the cars handled? Was it just the drivers themselves? Or was it just the fact that coming into tonight, there were only maybe a handful of drivers in the field that had everything to lose and nothing to gain? We're going to have to find out. The only people that really know the answers to that are our drivers here this evening. Let's see if we can talk with a few of them. Let's kick things off with tonight's third place finisher, Adam Sweet. Hey, Adam, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
10-4.
Well, man, I mean, we said it here just moments ago. Everybody who had the performances they had here tonight certainly had to earn it. A lot of carnage, a lot of drivers having to avoid incidents. You bring that 55 car home in the third position. We saw you get swept up in a couple of incidents, but man, describe those last couple of laps there coming back to that checkered flag.
All I saw was cars going everywhere and chaos. That was just wow. I mean, oh man, I don't even know what to say.
Man, you started at the back of the field, 42nd spot coming into this race. I mean, you really were not running at the front of the field early on in this race, and yet what did you have to do to make it through to get towards the front? Because we saw you second position in contention for the win right at the end of the race.
Pick and choose spots and don't fly into the grandstands. That was basically the whole deal. Just don't fly into the grandstands. No, I just wow. I'm amazed. Like top three for the heck. That's my first top 10. Top three. We're talking top three. But yeah, I mean, anyway, good win to Nate. Good race with Nate and Tristan. I was thinking, I was just like, oh, do I kind of give him a little rub? I was like, nah, better not. He's running for points and I'm not. I mean, I've left for 2 months, so I mean, it is what it is. Good win, Nate.
Now, obviously, up here in the booth, Adam, we can only speculate with what we see out there. You're behind the wheel of these machines out there racing with these other guys. And one thing we observed was there was no let up in the aggressiveness that was from the front to the back of the field. We saw 3 wide even in the first couple laps of this race. And of course, we expected it in the latter stages of this race. What was the key factor, do you think, that led to us seeing these drivers kind of almost go out there and treat every single lap as if maybe they were coming around to take the checkered that time?
42 guys out there that are extremely hungry and want to win every race. It's just that drive that, I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? It's, oh man, I'm sorry. I just can't really speak.
Absolutely understand what you're saying. Well, I mean, Adam, obviously, congratulations on the performance today. As Alex pointed out, back to front to finish up in the third position, your first top 5 of your FTF career. So congratulations on that. We're now going to give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Jonathan Casey, Robert, sorry. Oh my God. First Four Racing, just those guys just, helped me just get my confidence back. I mean, that's really all it was. It was confidence. I was lacking confidence, and they really helped me out there.
Well, Adam Sweet brings that number 55 home in the third position here tonight in the Motorsports Drop 250 at Daytona. Congratulations, Adam. Go get some rest. Enjoy this great performance here tonight. Well done.
You know what? Thank you, guys.
Let's see if we can talk with our second place finisher, Tristan Hagenstein. Hey, Tristan, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. 41 thousandths of a second between you and your first victory on the season. I know you wanted to get those 5 playoff points. Nothing really to lose, already locked into the playoffs coming into this race. But, I mean, there on that final lap, we kind of saw the big pack break up with the wreck that took place around the middle of that area in 3 and 4. What little more did you need to be able to get him at the start-finish line? Because you had a heck of a run, it seemed, coming into the Tri-Oval.
Yeah. So I guess I'll take it through from the green to checkered here. Because it was an eventful one for me. We just got a really good restart on the bottom, and when I saw the 45 kind of get loose, that opened the door for me to take the outside. I can't remember who it was behind me. I think it was Kari or someone that stayed with me, trying to take Nate on the outside. Nate threw a great block. I doored the 55. Apologize about that, but at that point, I was like, yeah, I think it's just safe to stay behind Nate at the moment. Just ride it out, see what happens. If we get the run, we get the run. And then come into turn 1 on the final lap. I kid you not when I say this. All my pretty much everything on my dash was blinking. All my gauges were flashing red, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing better make it there. I was so nervous. At that point, I was like, I just want to finish the race. And then we got a final shot once the field started wrecking behind us. We had a final shot to make a run at Nate. We just didn't have enough for him there. But you know what? I'm proud of the second place effort. We did what we could to stay in the back, kind of stay out of all of the wrecks. We got caught up in a few minor things here and there, but you know, that's just super speedway racing. And hats off to Nate. He drove a heck of a race. He's always been one of my good buddies here. And it's good to see him finally get that first win. But all in all, good day.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit of a question tonight. I mean, you were one of the ones that I believe, excuse me if I'm a little wrong, but I believe you were in the middle of the pack for most of this race. I want to ask you, was there ever a moment where you were calm? Because the front of the field was going crazy for the entire race. So was there ever a moment sitting around the middle that you were just saying, I'm not going to race anybody really hard. I'll just sit here and relax?
Yeah, there was... The easy answer to that is yes, and it's a kind of a yes and no question or answer there, actually. I mean, I knew what I had to do to take care of myself. It was more so worrying about what my fellow competitors were doing around me. Like I said, I was just trying to stay out of harm's way for the majority of that, and all I knew is if I can just keep the car clean to the end, we'll be fine. No need to panic right now. Just do what I got to do. So yeah, I guess in a sense, yeah, I was pretty calm for the most part. I did what I could to stay out of trouble, and we had a shot at it. So I guess the plan worked out. But to answer your question, yeah, there was moments where I was calm. There was moments where I wasn't calm. It was kind of a yes and no answer there.
We talked about this at the top of the program here, Tristan, about the fact that every single driver in the field came into this race with a different agenda. Obviously, everybody wanted to take that checkered flag, but for different reasons. You had drivers that just wanted to get a W here this season. They're not in contention to make it into the playoffs or battle for the championship. In your case, you know, you and your other the other 10 playoff contenders trying to go out there, get those 5 bonus points for when the playoff points are reformatted with that W. You had a couple of drivers there in Rice and Corder and Naraki. They're battling for that final wild card position. So I have to ask, how much diplomacy took place either this week or coming into tonight's race of, hey, work with me, I'll work with you, or did it seem more like tonight was basically just every man for himself, and if you could work with somebody, an alliance might be formed for a little moment?
Yeah, I mean, well, my one help was took an early exit out of the race, being Andrew Schwartz. I guess you could say we're teammates to an extent. But there really was no game plan going into it to work with anybody. That's just kind of how it's always been with me. Just like I'll find my friends when I find my friends, and vice versa. You know, I guess towards the end, that's when it kind of settled in. Okay, who can I trust to go with? Who can I not trust to go with? I knew if I went with Nate, and just kind of pushed with him, he was going to stay on the high side with me. I knew, because we just kind of have that connection every time we're around each other. We respect each other as competitors, and I knew Nate would take care of me the best he could, and I would do the same. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I guess there really isn't much thought going into it because super speedways are just such a wild card. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Definitely did. Well, I mean, congratulations on the great performance here tonight. Yes, you didn't get the 5 playoff points, but second place does get you 2 playoff points heading into the reformatted standings. So it'll be interesting to see where you get seated in. Great momentum heading into Las Vegas in a few weeks' time as well off this runner-up finish. So congratulations on all of that, and also congratulations on surviving here today, because I don't think there was a single car in the field we didn't see that wasn't bearing some of the battle scars from this 100 lappers. So now we're going to hand the mic over to you, Tristan, to thank some sponsors, do some shout-outs.
For sure. First and foremost, I want to thank the Suicide Prevention Lifeline for allowing me to run their banner on the car, as always. I got to thank the boys over at Clout Empire Discord, especially Andrew Schwartz, Adam Kodal, Chris Wetz for kind of helping me get through that race. I want to thank my cat, Moshi. I love her. She's purring in my arms right now. Happy that I'm done racing for the night. And with that all being said, I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you guys in the booth for always doing a great job, and the production team. You guys, it's always fun rewatching the broadcasts, and can't wait to rewatch it tonight. And everyone else who just makes this happen, admin team, etc., viewers, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show.
That's Tristan Hagenstein, runner-up here tonight at the Daytona International Speedway to end off the regular season and begin the playoffs. Congratulations, Tristan. Best of luck here as you're going to be trying to gun for that championship starting at Las Vegas in about 3 weeks' time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
A very democratic top 3. You had the Chevy of Adam Sweet, the Ford of Tristan Hagenstein, and the Toyota of Nate Stewart, who's down in victory lane now. Let's see if we can dial him up. Hey, Nate, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Good morning.
Well, man, I mean, we could definitely tell about the elation inside the cockpit of that Toyota Supra with just how lengthy that burnout was. I mean, how important was it to end off this regular season with your first win here in the Grand National Series, carrying that momentum, and more importantly, those 5 playoff points into Las Vegas?
It means a lot heading into the playoffs, because with the way the playoffs work, playoff points are going to be important, because if I don't, basically, as long as I can stay towards the top in playoff points or like during the playoffs, I should be good to make it into the final round. And that's pretty much the mindset, is do everything I can to make it to the final round, and this win and these playoff points definitely help.
Now, something I want to ask you is that you were racing at the front of the field for pretty much the entire night, and we saw that that's where most of the action came from, and that's where most of the aggression and wrecks came from. So tell us, what was the mindset going on that you guys were racing so hard for the entire race?
Well, I didn't want to race that hard. I really didn't, because I don't know, with racing early, because I mean we had a decent amount of cautions tonight, as much as I hate to say it, but I definitely didn't want to be racing that much, but we did, and I did end up getting some damage out of it, but the biggest thing is I minimized damage and all that, and I think that was the biggest thing, was minimizing damage. I got, during the first caution or something, I got 6 seconds on the rear bumper, and then later in the race I actually scraped the wall on my own. I got 9 seconds out of that, but it was mostly about just minimal risks, and keeping the car clean was the biggest thing. I definitely didn't like how things were looking, but at the same time, I already knew I was locked into the playoffs, so whatever happened just kind of happened this race.
Yeah, did that kind of give you a little bit of alleviation in terms of knowing that you were already going to be locked into the playoffs no matter what, and you could kind of go out there, go for broke to try and get those playoff points, kind of the bring home the trophy or bring home the steering wheel mentality?
Yeah, that's kind of what it was because I knew I was confident I was gonna be locked into the playoffs. So knowing going into Daytona of all places that I was locked in, that definitely helped out quite a bit because yeah, like you said, the bring home the trophy or bring home the steering wheel mentality. That was definitely the mindset tonight. Because if I wrecked, I wrecked. But if I won, I won, and that's seriously what I ended up doing is winning. And I definitely didn't expect to win. It's definitely been a long time coming after heartbreak at Monza and between bad luck this season, and I've actually had a decent few runs this season. So I definitely feel like this win's been a long time coming. It's weird because I usually run the 4 car, but I ran the 80 tonight because Cole Freilich wanted to make sure he was locked into the field. So we decided to swap for one night. And I don't know, it's kind of weird winning, but not being in the number I typically run.
Yeah, it was kind of weird for me too. I think there were a couple of times where I nearly called you Freilich and nearly called Freilich you. So yeah, that kind of confused me as well. But I mean, man, first off, congratulations on the victory. Those 5 playoff points certainly going to move you up there in the seeding for when the points are reformatted heading into Las Vegas. So that'll be interesting to see where you are stacked up against the rest of the competition. Obviously, the momentum going to be on your side beginning the playoffs as well. The most recent driver finding victory lane, and also the fact as well, as Alex pointed out, kept your car up front most of the day and were able to stay out of trouble where we saw most of the wrecks take place, and able to keep that car in one piece to be able to beat Hagenstein back to the start finish line for your first win of the season. So congratulations on that. We're now going to turn the microphone over to you for some victory lane thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
All right, this might be a long one, but first off, I want to say thanks to you guys for broadcasting. Thanks to the FTF admins for putting this on because they put in a lot of work into this league, and without them, we definitely wouldn't be able to do all this and have fun on a weekly basis. I know it can get frustrating at times, but without them, we definitely wouldn't be able to have the fun that we do weekly. And then now, time for the sponsor list. First off, Apex Action Racing Photography. That's my personal iRacing photography business. And hopefully we'll be venturing into the real world here soon. Speed Visions for coming on board for Road to Pro and FTF GNS. Make sure to visit speedvisions.net for all your racing needs, featuring merchandise with Brad Perez, Preston Pardis, and many more. Rexford Engineering. Rexford Engineering does button boxes, high quality for a decent price. Bench Racer, make sure to sign up for the Intimidator Challenge. It is a event with the asphalt sprint cars at Talladega coming up soon, benefiting Marshall Pruitt and his wife. Digital Chumps, Lowline Racing, the Rain Race Podcast, STN Racing. I know, don't yell at me, but they sponsor me as well, so I got to shout them out. Thanks to Cole Freilich for, letting me drive the 80 car tonight. Big thank you to Lowline Racing. They've helped me out this season at FTF and Road to Pro. So coming off a 9th place at Texas and Road to Pro, and then, coming here just a couple days later and getting a win is definitely means a lot. Seems like my luck is starting to turn around, knock on wood, and I'm just hoping to keep the momentum going. Big thank you to Tristan for helping me out those last couple laps and pushing me. And again, thanks to Cole Freilich and Spencer Ray for working with me the entire race. Without them, I definitely wouldn't have been able to stay up front like I was.
Nate Stewart, finally breaks into the win column, and what a time to do it in the regular season finale, right on the cusp of the playoffs beginning, as he is your winner here tonight at Daytona in the Motorsports Drop 250. Congratulations, Nate. Go and enjoy that victory, and looking forward to seeing you go to work and trying to get that championship trophy when we get to Las Vegas in 3 weeks' time.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Wow, the dust finally settles here at Daytona after a thriller at this 2.5-mile super speedway. We documented it already, Alex. Just absolute action from start to finish. Seemed like every single lap might as well have been the last lap, the way they were racing, especially up at the front. But we now know the drivers that are going to be battling for the championship. Jonathan Oates, Brent Pancari, Jake Poulin, Nathan Rabideau, Andrew Schwartz, Sean Butler. Tonight's winner, Nate Stewart, Matthew Zwack, Lucas Palesso, Gary Waterworth, and Tristan Hagenstein. We knew they were already locked in coming in tonight. Evan Rice finishing inside the top 5. 4th place tonight secures the final position. One thing I want to touch on there that we heard from our race winner, Nate Stewart, kind of came into tonight with the go for broke mentality. Bring home the trophy or bring home the steering wheel. Pretty certain that's not going to be the mentality for any of those 12 drivers when we get to Las Vegas because, I mean, who knows? A victory there as early as Las Vegas, that puts them front and center in the championship picture.
Yeah, that's also going to put a target on their back as well, because if they can do that, that's going to tell everybody, we got to make sure that we don't help this guy out too much because he could be a danger to take this championship away from me. Essentially, tonight was their kind of therapy, their way to get all the crazy racing out of their heads before they head into the playoffs, and they have to start racing a lot more nervous around other people.
Talk about being nervous. Mentioned it. 2 off weeks before we get to Vegas. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the drivers? Does it give them more opportunity to be able to turn some laps and kind of be prepared for Las Vegas, or does it make them wait and kind of maybe eat themselves raw with nervousness of what to expect in that first playoff race?
Well, I guess it just kind of depends what kind of driver you are. Luckily, because of this being a simulator here, drivers have the opportunity to do whatever they need to do to prepare for these races, whether you want to practice the track itself or just practice driving around other cars in official sessions. You have that option. So I don't think the 2 weeks are going to be detrimental for any drivers, but some of them may be a little thrown off going into Vegas.
Well, it should be interesting. A thriller here tonight at Daytona finally sets up our 12 playoff contenders for the championship. Once again, congratulations to Jonathan Oates as he is your winner of the Motorsports Drop Challenge, finishing this evening out in the 10th position and taking that championship. And man, what a way to begin off the playoffs now, which will be taking place, as mentioned, at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The green flag will be flying that Saturday night, September 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alex, it's always great to be able to see you pounding that 222 out there on the racetrack, but really cool to have you in the booth here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and actually, for that Vegas race, I may possibly be piloting the 51 for next time, so maybe you have to look out for me.
Ooh, definitely going to have to. Well, thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of the regular season finale here for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Nate Stewart picks up his first career win and carries some big momentum into the playoffs that will be beginning in the middle of the month. But until then, for Alex Kolonix, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in here this evening to another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you